All
see
right. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mad Mooks podcast. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts, Sheikh Amr, Saeed, Mahin Islam, and Buffalo Bill Mort.
Buffalo Bill. Buffalo
Why
Soldier.
Do you like Islam? Why do you
Buffalo
I
Soldier.
think I imagine doing the Buffalo Bill dance.
Mort, can you do that for us? You got no space.
I don't even know what the Buffalo Bill dance is.
Oh, you don't know the Buffalo Bill dance?
He knows. He acting like he
No,
knows.
I don't know what
Mort
Don't
knows
worry
all
about
these.
it. It just means
It's
your mind is
absolutely-
not corrupted. And
I'm a Bears fan, dude. I know the Super Bowl shuffle.
No, I'm talking about a different Buffalo Bill. Don't worry about it.
It's like a porn star.
Oh no, I don't know the Buffalo Bills. Or
If you watch Silence of the Lambs,
none
you
of that
know what
stuff.
I'm talking
I don't know
about.
that stuff.
okay.
First thing that comes to his mind, man.
You know what I'm talking about. Sheikh Amr knows what I'm talking about.
No, man.
He knows what I'm
You
talking
are
about.
that is appalling, Sheikh Amr.
You are the
I'm
was a good
appalled,
movie, bro.
actually.
you are a horrible
It
shit.
was a good movie
Which
back
movie-
in the day.
which
bro.
Hold on,
Sounds
let me
like
say this on
Sounds
Twitter.
like-
Let me tell everybody on Twitter that we're actually live right now because we were kind of delaying 1 hour late. Sorry, everybody, but we had some technical difficulties. So let me just repeat that we are actually officially live. All right, cool.
Whoa.
There's nobody
Good.
on. Just me and Sim.
It's okay.
Hey, nobody even cares about us.
It's okay. Who cares?
Shut
We shouldn't
up,
care
Rick.
about them
It's
either.
okay.
I think
cares?
We are also 55 minutes late.
we had technical
It
technical
happens.
difficulties.
It happens.
You're like, man, yeah, y'all been doing this for 3.5, 4 years.
I know,
It's all
right?
good.
Well, technically, YouTube
do
video.
it for
We've
20
only done
years.
it for a year.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing it for 20 years, bro, it's all good. It happens.
I'm like really triggered that
happens
no
for a
one's on
reason.
this freaking.
Dude, you
Maybe-
don't look at the numbers,
Oh.
bro. Just do what you got to do, man.
Yeah, who cares about the numbers?
Yeah, man. We're just here with
If
Buffalo.
we did it for the numbers, we would have been like, we would do other stupid things. Like, we'd have Sheikh Amr, like, inhale, like, I don't know, wasabi through his nostrils or something.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and get started
Let's
on
do
the issues of the day.
What do you want to talk about? I mean, it's juicy Friday. What do you want to talk about?
Well, this whole week has been a bonanza of information and like information.
bonanza.
Yeah,
That steak, like the
or
steakhouse.
or a plethora. You can use a lot of.
More,
different-
what are you drinking? Show us that in Buffalo. What are you drinking?
Enchilada.
Put that back up. Put that bottle back. What is that?
Is that root
Stuff
beer?
it up, bro. Oh, I was getting ready to say. I just saw one side of it. I was like, this boy just cracked a cold Beck's.
It's IBC.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Beck's is a green bottle.
I
This
know.
is,
Is it? Sorry, I
think
didn't
it's a
know.
green bottle.
I didn't
I
know.
think.
Sorry, Mort.
Yeah, I just couldn't know these things. But no, this is root
Green
beer.
bottle. Who says that right away?
Oh,
Wow.
because I know it. I mean, we grew up with American like advertising. Yeah, I'm sorry. Not all of us spent 15 years in Egypt like hanging out a camel,
Hey,
eating tamarloops.
Hey, easy with the racism there,
Cool.
okay, buddy?
yeah. Speaking of racism, why do white people like? Man, I'll tell you, man, these white folks, they have done so much damage. I mean, damn.
Anyways,
So are we
So, yeah.
hitting on
Yeah, we
white
are
people
live. Yeah,
now?
we're live.
You know what?
Freaking
I had
white folks
indigestion this morning, so I'm gonna blame some white people for that.
Well, World War One, Archduke Ferdinand was like some white dude shot somebody. Nazi Germany, World War II, Vietnam, right? Wasn't that some white folks started that? Civil War for sure. American Revolution,
Yeah, but why
French
do we start
Revolution.
with but here's my thing though. Why do we start with like the early 1900s? Why don't we talk about like Genghis Khan like ravaging the whole goddamn world? Or why don't we talk about some of the Muslim empires that actually went in and like basically crap on the places they went into, right? I mean, we somehow selectively start only like a 19th century.
I mean, we gotta live
What
in
about the
modern
Persian
times.
Empire that went in like did all this weird kind of incestuous weird tactics all over the world?
How many
I mean,
times
they
did
went into-
Japan invade China?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, come on. You
Before
know what I
19.
mean? Let's be a little bit honest here, guys. I know it's conveniently easy to blame the white man because he's the majority in America, but, you know, hey, I got to be fair.
Bro, you know, I just wonder like if like these minorities, like us included, you know, we all like, you know, just got really angry and, you know, got in Whitey's face and said like, you did all this. They just like chuckle like, okay. And what are you going to do about it? Like,
No, but you know what?
we outnumber you by like 1,000,000 to 1 and have
it's
if
not
it,
even that
you
so
know,
much.
like,
You know, I just imagine okay, imagine like taking a guy like, and I hate to name drop here, right? But let's take a guy like Abdul Malik Ryan, right? And I say, you whiteys did everything, right? And like, he would just probably look at me and just be like so calm and like, all right, dude, if you feel that way.
Actually, I think he would have. I think he'd agree with that.
Yeah,
That
I
way
mean,
he-
well, yeah, he would say he would
he'd
encourage
probably,
you.
He'd probably be like,
No,
yeah,
yeah.
actually, I believe
Yeah,
it.
but what I'm saying is, but I think majority
He would help you go beat up a white guy.
But I think majority of these people. I mean, what I'm saying is he's just calm, right? That's why I chose him, not to debate about his politics, but he's so calm. Like, I mean, imagine like, okay, now, like Sheikh Rami and Sur looks white, right? What if somebody did that to him? I bet you he'd be calm and all right, sure, whatever, dude. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I don't feel like that. Most white people would be, would really take that argument serious and be like, hey, yeah, I'm to blame for everything. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, for example, if someone came up to me and said, you caused the Holocaust, I'd be like, all right, whatever, dude. You're crazy.
And let me tell you a
You know
story.
what I mean?
So I've got this bar. Now this is just anecdotal. Like, so I've got this barber that's been cutting my hair for like 2 years, right? Aaron, if you're watching, shout out to Aaron. But you need to believe in God, dude. He's on an atheist tip. But anyways, Aaron is somebody that, like, I was telling him, like, Aaron, because I'm in there. We're just talking about whatever stuff, like Ertugrul, Islam, LGBTQ.
Wait, he watches Ertugrul?
He put it on in his barbershop once for me. Because
Cool
I was
guy.
talking about it for like a year. Because when I was binging hard, every time I'd go in, he'd ask me like, "Which episode are you on?" I'm like, "What's going on now?" I was like, "Oh yeah, the Mongols just raped a bunch of people, or something, right?" And so
Yeah.
I was telling him like, "Hey, Aaron, I think you gotta be proud to be white. You feel like you're dating an Asian girl. I mean, that to me is a sign of you not being proud of your whiteness." And the thing of it is, white people have done a lot, man. White people built the world. You should own that. And he's like, yeah, on the backs of like colored people. I'm like, well, that's the colored people's fault for letting them do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a dog eat dog world. So there are white people that definitely feel like they're responsible for a lot of stuff like that.
See, the whole way we frame the way we frame
Right.
it as Muslims, we don't. We recognize that there are color characteristics. There's things like colorism in each society. That people are inherently racist or stereotype people of different colors, even within like ethnicities, with whether you're Chinese, Indian, whatever, right? The problem is when you have identified a systemic issue and you've just labeled it as white supremacy and you've called it the source of all problems. No one has ignored white supremacy as a problem within this ethnicity of white people, but there's also the same problem among Indians, Chinese people, and other ethnicities, and they would have done the same exact thing if they had the resources to do so. The problem is that the European civilization, they had increased their navigation skills so quickly and so fast that they had like literally a arms race in shipbuilding so that they can navigate across the world quickly. And they were able to exploit areas of the world that were very easily able to be exploited. Other places in the world would have done the same thing had they increased their.
It's a human problem.
Yeah, it's a problem with
what I mean is
humans,
you're
and
right.
I want to explain that some of this language that's happening with related to white supremacy, white privilege, and things like that. It's not necessarily that it doesn't exist. Yes, there is a privilege among white people in America, but there's also a privilege among, let's just say, the Brahmins in India, right? You can't label white privilege as everything, right? Because it doesn't apply. If you're going to have a label, call it a racist, structural racism, or classism, or something like that. But when you've inherently identified one particular race with white supremacy, that becomes a problem. And I apologize to a lot of the listeners who got upset with the recent show. It was really not intended to even be about that subject. It was just supposed to be a chill episode. We were just supposed to be talking about the Bahamas relief effort. We were initially started the show talking about khutbahs and stuff, and that's all that it was supposed to be. We didn't mean to really go in that direction at all. It just went the way it did.
Tangent. I personally, dude, all of a sudden, I love the episode.
Yeah.
I love being a part of it. I thought it was cool. I never felt anything towards our guests in my heart. I don't think especially during the podcast, he didn't feel anything in his heart for us.
We prayed afterwards?
Of course we did,
Yeah.
man. It was great. I personally loved it.
It's an emotional topic, right?
Yeah.
And so people are passionate about either side because of their ethnic and their I guess societal background, right? And so either parties or different parties are going to take this thing differently, right? Perhaps, like for example, if I grew up around a bunch of Yemenis or Indians that felt like, you know what, the British are the worst devils in the world and that they ruined everything we ever had. They colonized us and they took our language and took everything from us, right? If I heard that all the time around me, right, my natural response is to have this animosity towards them. And by the way, this happens among Muslims, but to who? To non-Muslims, right? When we were growing up, we had this deep animosity towards non-Muslims.
Yeah.
If I saw him, what a dirty pig eater. Oh, Hindus. Oh, what a piss drinker. Right? I mean, like you start thinking these things, right? No, I'm serious. Like, you start saying these things right in your head.
Yeah,
right?
when you're
and
young, yeah.
Build this animosity towards you. You've characterized individuals in your mind based on people around you and what's acceptable for you to say.
Because someone could say, let me play devil's advocate. Someone could say that happened. I remember when we first moved in our neighborhood, there was only a few Desis there, right? And people would be Hindu, Gandhi, Dodhead, and people don't know about those now, but in the 80s, that was very, very prominent, right? You know, you filthies, whatever the case.
Did you get called a Gandhi? Or
I got called Gandhi so many times. And I never understood why, like me and even sometimes some of my brothers, we'd get into if you think about it later, it's like, dude, we didn't need to fight him. We're not even Hindus. Like, what the heck was up with that? It's just you feel like somebody's disrespecting you, right? But I'm coming to the point here is that the reason someone may say that we hated other people is because people hated us and they happen to be white people. Right? So since at such a young age, somebody showed that hate towards us, we learned that behavior through hate, even though we hated that behavior towards us, but we learned behavior through that. What would we say to that?
So isn't it those people, not the current people? Right? I mean, it likewise, so how far back do you want to go? When the Muslims conquered India or when the Muslims conquered parts of Europe or Constantinople? Does that give them a reason to hate you too? Right? When Tariq bin Ziyad went to Spain and said, we're going to burn our boats and take us over no matter what? Does that constitute as aggression towards them? And can they hold that in their hearts? Right? I mean, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to hate all Chinese or Mongolians because of Genghis Khan or Asians? Yeah. I mean, how far do you really want to go back, right? So the point is that we don't hold each other back for that generation. Every empire, everybody was doing the same thing pretty much at that time, right? Meaning they wanted a conquest. They wanted to gain. It was economic and it was political. So you need to be dominant and have power. A war of empires.
Well, one of the main effects. It's the whole theory related to this white supremacy and white privilege. It all is coming from this branch of theory called critical race theory. Now, when you look at critical race theory, it didn't really exist for many years. It's very a new type of study that came from a type of study called critical theory itself. Critical theory was a way that communists used to criticize capitalist practices. A lot of communist or neo socialist type thinkers thought of ways to critique capitalism, and they used these models and ways of thinking to create a way to let's just say that they need to figure out how the different structures of economic powers are manifesting the way they are, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but what happened as a result of critical theory is that there's many different other theories. Other leftist thinkers saw that and said, hey, we could apply the same set of tools for many different things. So we saw feminist critical theory come out. We saw queer theory, critical race theory. So all these different types of models came out to figure out how different power dynamics take hold in various subsets of society.
Let me ask you a very late question. Yeah, go ahead. So I think what's going to help people understand is why the word critical
Because you're
prefix before theory. Like, where does critical fit in? I think that's going to give us direction of what do you mean? Why is it called critical? What is it critical of?
I think they're critical of the actual status quo, the power paradigm, the power structure, whoever's at the top of the food chain, and why they're there, and how can we have some more equality among everyone in the world. So that's why a lot of people call it neo-Marxism. That there's, because Karl Marx is the founder of communism. Communism wants equality among people. Hence, this is why you saw even in like Zaid Shakir's rebuttal to Al-Arian's article, he was talking a lot about many of the philosophers related to critical race theory. He's actually addressing that a lot of this type of activism is coming from the leftist arena, and leftist arena comes from it has a big influence of critical race theory involved in it. That's why we've been doing a lot of these episodes related to it, so that Muslims kind of can get a little bit more aware of where some of these ideas are coming from.
We should know the ideas that we have and the worldview that we have, where those original philosophies stem from, because they control our thoughts.
But not just that. I mean, it's not just that they control our thoughts. There's specific people in our community who are screaming, "You're a racist," at your face if you are asking a few too many questions. Like, no, you don't understand, Sheikh Amir. Figure it out. You read a book. Here's 3 books. Read that. I'm like, wait. If your argument is so, if your argument has so much structure and so much layers to it, and that's your thesis, right? In order for you to understand your argument, like, is it worth disseminating? Because what's happening as a result is that they're really pushing it and they're screaming privilege and racism in your face. And
to sum it up, just to bring this kind of back into an Islamic perspective, Amir, one of the beauties of Islam is that our whole philosophy and theology is simple, right? If you want to ask me what is a Muslim, the one who says ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. If you ask a Christian what is the Christian, the Trinity, what is the Trinity, right? It gets into a whole new thing. It becomes convoluted. And I'm not saying I'm comparing this with religion. What I'm saying is that concepts that take forever to explain and require you to understand certain principles from before and establish those and agree on those and then move to a next. These things are complicated. That means it's an indication that it's not something so clear cut.
Yeah.
There's ambiguity in it.
Yeah.
You have to assume that people are taking the same position and have the same feelings and attitudes that you do before arriving to a conclusion. And the steps required to arrive at that attitude and those conclusions is tedious, and it may not even happen. And
it's constantly changing. That's the problem.
And if you don't arrive at the same conclusions that are necessary as a precondition, as a prerequisite to understand critical race theory, you're labeled a racist. You're labeled as someone who doesn't know something.
Yeah, how is somebody supposed to keep up to date with that? Right?
Yeah, I don't think it's designed to like for the layman to understand it. To be honest, I think it's an academic.
But you're seeing the effect of it, though. You're seeing the terminology coming, because when you look up white supremacy or structural white supremacy, and you look up things like white privilege, you're like, well, where did these words start coming up from? And then you start finding out that there's this theory out there called critical theory.
Okay.
It doesn't say critical race theory, just critical theory. And that is the actual theory that was created by a lot of neo-Marxists and whatever. And so there is truth to when Sheikh Zaid Shakir mentions all these different philosophers that were that really pushed that frame of thinking. And that's why it's so problematic, because when you look at some of the inherent conclusions that these philosophers come up with, for example, what is knowledge, right? These are philosophical questions that many philosophers thought of, right? When we have in Islam a specific view of what knowledge is, and then you have a philosopher saying that knowledge, or a neo-Marxist philosopher saying that knowledge is only your past experience, right? But Islam defines knowledge in a much different category.
Yeah.
There's not just knowledge in past experiences. It's knowledge that's coming through your senses, through perception,
Epistemology in Islam, yeah.
right? And this is the reasons why their things are so problematic. So people, when in ideology or faith or whatever is formed, there's inherent truths to it. That's why it's so beautiful that the Islamic theology is built on this one statement. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah.
Right,
you know,
right.
And it's
that-
based off
so
observing
so
of the
simple.
senses.
I think
that
observe
is
that
the
truth
ultimate
with the
truth.
senses, yeah.
Yes.
Right. So I think Mahin had a question before you asked a question about this, or the counter position. I want to ask you this real quick so we understand something. If something is true for one group, it has to be true for the other group, right? I mean, the conditions, meaning that if I say, hey, if it's wrong for this group, it must be wrong for that group.
Well,
Right? It
depends
can't be
which-
selectively wrong, right? Do you agree with that premise, Mahin?
So I think no, it depends. It depends on. So for example, we were talking about like how far back do you want to go? I think this subject is like people are talking about it because people feel that there is a real life impact today in the United States. That's the context of what we're talking about. So what the Ottomans did, or what like other people did, like there's. So I think we have to like all these theories probably have to define boundaries first, right? And I think the reason it's important is because people feel like it's affecting the day-to-day life of them here in the United States, and like
So here's one of the. I mean, I'm so happy you brought that up, because these same, now we can all agree to a lot of the conclusions that critical race theory comes up with, right?
Yeah.
We'll say like, hey, there is structural racism and there is some sort of white privilege, but what are you agreeing to? You agree to a frame of critique on white people, but then what if you start applying those same rules of critique on Muslims and
That's
the
what I was
various
trying to get at.
khilafas and the various Khulafa Rashidun? You know, the Battle of Yarmouk, when Khalid bin Walid slaughtered like tens of thousands of Roman soldiers, it was a slaughter. And even though Muslims were outnumbered 3-1 or 4-1 almost,
22,000 or something like.
yeah, I think there were
200.
100,000, 150,000 Roman soldiers, and then the Muslim army was around 70,000. I can't, don't
Yes,
hold me to that, but
enormous number, like difference,
enormous
right, yeah.
numbers. They were incredibly outmatched, and they just leveled them, and to the point that the Roman soldiers were just being tossed off the cliffs. It was just a devastating loss.
They got forced back so much that they were just falling off the cliff, like they were just jumping
So
off. Yeah.
these same set of rules can apply to Muslims, and I've heard Muslims use certain types of Muslims, activists, who use these same principles to deride our Sahaba and the Salaf and the people who came after that. These things are dangerous. They're a double-edged sword, essentially. When
Can you
really
make that
think about it.
connection? What do you mean? What does
So-
the Battle of Yarmouk
Amr,
have to do with
what
what
we're
they're
saying
saying?
is this, Amr. Apply what you're applying today, like to white people or this whole culture, and apply those same principles to our Islamic history. And you can apply it to the Banu Umayyah. You can apply it to even some of the actions that people may deem, like according to Orientalists, the history of, for example, Banu Nadir and Banu Qaynuqa, right? You can apply these things to that. And if you apply these things to them the same way you're applying it to white people today, if you apply it the same way to our own history, it's not going to end well.
So
It's gonna. I mean, you have to end up discrediting all of Islamic history.
More, why don't you bring up an example of like a modern day scenario that people want to talk about? Something like,
The Ottoman genocide of Armenia. That's what they. That a lot of the
Right,
Armenian
yeah.
genocide. That's what they always
I'll
blame.
give an example.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to bring that up. So let's say the white invaders, Portuguese and Spaniards, went into Latin America and they somehow and they forcefully converted and slaughtered the indigenous peoples there. Right. It happened.
Okay.
We're not denying that. It's true. They changed their culture. They raped their women. They took their children. I mean, this is all. It's factual. It's not. I'm not denying any of those things that happened. They're wrong and they happened. But look at the Ottoman Empire. It happened in Armenia, where they walked in there. They literally slaughtered more than a million Armenians, right? That were sitting there, right? I mean, millions of Armenians. They killed them. They pretty much subjugated them under harsh rule. The Ottoman, even the rulings of certain people living under the Ottoman Empire, right? They had certain different requirements. than the regular Ottoman citizens. What would you call that today?
Well,
Right? Balance in power.
Well, okay,
Right?
I got you, but like the Ottoman Empire, as far as I know from our dean, isn't infallible, right? So couldn't we just say the Ottomans were wrong in that?
I'm saying we can go through all that, but I'm saying, do you want to go back to? I mean,
I'm saying like example like
Muawiyah and say, you know what, by him taking as Yazid as his successor, that he was involving in nepotism, and the fact that this happened, and this is a social injustice, and that's why all these people died, and now Islam has been ruined since then.
Well, the thing I think.
How far do you want to go back?
Well, I think when you take what happened today and 1,400 years ago, there's different political structures, the boundaries change, but also we weren't there. Like people, like what happens today is people have like are living through it, right? We really don't know what it was like at that time.
But that's not what he's saying. I think you're talking about on the second phase. What he's saying is that if Muslims, if we go that far as Muslims are concerned, then Muslims should be to blame for a lot of the world's problems too. Then,
well, maybe they are.
You see Fox News' side. Well, so are you going to agree with them?
Wait, let me just make this point, please. Keep in mind, a lot of the people that are talking about this, they always frequently mention slavery, what happened then, and then what happened to their ancestors, and how that influenced their culture, how it's continuing on today. They frequently mention historical events, right? And even and generally they haven't faced it in their lifetime, but they're talking about the effects of these historical events that impact them today.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
So I mean, they're not. It's not. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. There's definitely racism happening today. But to the level they're talking about, usually most of that, in order to qualify that, they have to reference historical events that they didn't live through, right? And that's part of the problem, right? Because how much of history is relevant? I mean, how much do you want to bring in history as an influencer in? We can go so far back. Everyone can be influenced culturally and socially by the historical events that their ancestors faced, right? How they view certain people, why they're viewing them that way, right? And then so what I'm trying to say is that keep in mind, I don't think me, Sim, or anyone who has my position is saying that there's not injustice today. Absolutely there is, right? But can we say that you're part of a system if you belong to a particular race, or that you don't believe a particular race is responsible for everything, or a particular ideology is responsible for everything? I don't think that automatically makes you, complacent in all this, right? And says, or complicit, and say that, you know what, you are the one that is part of the problem, right? You see what I'm trying to get at here, Mahim?
Yeah.
It's not so simple.
Are you? So I think I agree with you. I think the issue is that the folks who are arguing for it, first of all, if we're talking about whiteness, they're defining whiteness within so I read a paper this week by Teresa Guess, and it was talking about how race is a because trying to understand this side, because listen, man, you know me, we've been like right wing, like we rode right wing like back in the day, Bush Cheney 04, you know what I'm saying? Like
Trump 2020, baby.
So for me it was like I posted in one of our WhatsApp groups. One of the books I used to carry around in college was called The South Was Right, with a big Confederate flag on the cover, and my professor was
I didn't go that far.
so I was pretty much like so I was like, let me hear this other side. So I read this paper this week. And what they're defining is whiteness. And first of all, they're saying race, because race, obviously, that definition of race came about at some point in time, right? Probably before. I don't know if it's critical race theory seems to, according to what I read on Wiki, is like since the 80s. But race itself was some point that concept was formulated. The argument is that race is a sociological concept, right? And that whiteness is a combination of a few things: European descent, Caucasian, and originally Christianity, and these are bare minimum pillars, and then people, and it's used as a vehicle. So not every person from a European or Caucasian background, or even a Christian background, falls into it. So it is specifically defining a certain. So I don't think the argument people. I think if we accuse people of saying that all white people, I don't think anyone's saying all white, because the definition is, because probably we're having a conversation with folks. Some people want to use like. I was on a group chat the other day, and somebody's like, "Hey, Maheen, what's going on with our European American brother?" Right? There's this brother in a nursing home. He's like, "How's our European American brother doing?" Versus a white person, because I think that person defines it specifically. Whiteness is a subset, and that subset is the problem, and that's what. So you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, but why do we need to do that though?
Wait, one second here. But the same people that say white is a subset, they say black and Latino. Black is not a race. It's made up. It's constructed.
No, I think
So why
those people would say, no,
black?
it's not black. They would say African American. Use the proper term or use
I mean,
Colombian.
they always say black and Latino people. They say black and Latino. You didn't suffer like black and Latino people. These are all made up constructs. They're
Right.
not real. So what I'm saying is that while they may claim they use the term African American, right? But does that mean that now Africans from Africa who are not native African American, who are not descendants of slaves, they don't get the same category? Like what happens?
Yes.
The whole reason why they put black people is because they wanted to include Africans who are not descendants of slaves who come here and face racism as well. So that's why they include them, right? I mean, the idea is that we're not including people in a specific category of keep in mind, right? In Islam, right? Even in Islam, right? We categorize all the time. It's not based on superiority. It's just an apparent recognition of, hey, you know what? This person's lighter or darker. You don't have to really necessarily put that person in any particular particular group if you don't want to, but it's just commonly understood. Hey, that person's light skinned, or he's he's dark skinned. You know what I mean? Or he's darker. Like people say, hey, you're probably considered to be mulatto. I mean, people look at me all the time in the street and think I'm half black and half white. I don't know why, but they do. I don't care about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a perception of people, right? People consider me to be Latino, Puerto Rican all the time. I don't take it as offensive. Like, how dare you ascribe that race to me? I have nothing to do with that history.
Correct your language.
Hey, so I agree with you in the sense that like the people who are calling for these definitions, sometimes they are also using.
Well, they don't
the
understand.
general-
They don't understand it themselves. Probably is my that's the big problem, that it's got their theory has so much nuance and caveats to it, nooks and crannies
It
where there's
requires a
exceptions.
specialist to
Yeah, I
understand,
mean it's
and
like
even then it's always changing.
it's rocket science, and the way what happens is that the effect of it is
Yeah.
what matters. In the end, you're having people scream in white people's faces, say, "You're privileged. You're white. You have a responsibility to destroy the white
Which
power
is-
structure."
And I personally think, dude, look at it from a clear mindset. That's a type of racism too, bro.
Yeah, it is.
You know, that's
No,
a total.
but you know what though? I mean, you're right. But I just want to say this. I think people who are coming from that, they don't intend to be racist. I believe they have a good intention in their heart. They're wanting to right some wrong that happened, and that's fine. But they're going about it the wrong way.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're creating a counter-racist culture, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, and people don't believe in reverse racism, but I do. I believe in it. I think it's real. If you are so angry at one race and keep blaming them for everything, they're now, or even the construct of race, right? They're going to eventually feel disgruntled, and that bruise for a while, right? So I'm just saying, like,
Well, especially right now is what's happening is a lot of people are suffering from what irregardless of your race. There are a lot of white people who are suffering. They're undergoing poverty. They're having, a heroin epidemic going around the country. There's a methamphetamine epidemic in the country.
Yeah.
You're having all these white people who are suffering the problems that neoliberal capitalism has brought to the world, and they're seeing other ethnicities blame them, and they're like, well, in order for us to fight against that, we're going to join white supremacist groups and things like that. And it's like creating like a...
But that's the key, dude. You brought it
Yeah.
up. Dude, it's an idea that brings about, and that's what I was trying to say on that podcast.
Yeah.
And I still believe that. Either your ideas are from Islam or they're not from Islam,
Yeah.
right?
You
And-
know, Brother Sajid said very clearly, he said, you know what, these ideas are kufr.
Yeah.
Acknowledge them for what
I-
they are. They
I-
are kufr.
Yeah. And no, but not only if somebody has ideas that are not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they're rejected ideas, dude. That's all it comes down to. And the multiple hadith of Rasulullah. But my main thing here is this: I don't even care about it attributed to be a certain race or anything. Either it's from Allah or it's not from Allah, dude. And that's maybe it should. I think it should be kept that simple. And the second thing is that I actually had this conversation. Just on a funny note, I actually met a couple that happened to have, very, very light complexion, very, very light complexion. I figured they were originally European, and they felt so bad about being white. I'm not joking, dude. This is Yorktown Mall.
Yeah.
They felt so bad. And you know what they were saying to me? The lady especially, she was saying, oh, well, you know what? It's actually true, man. Our people, they've done so much and this and that. So, we have to work against it. I was like, dude, you're not to blame. Are you telling me that you were born with a sin? they were actually Christians, right?
Yeah.
They were practicing Christians to do
Well,
church and all.
they
So
do
are you
believe-
saying that you were born
with sin? They're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was
of course.
doing indirect dawah,
Yeah.
right? Indirect dawah. I said, no one's born with sin, dude. Are you telling me a baby, a child, who happens to be originally European, let's just say white for better lack of terms, because that's what we all understand. Baby's white and has nothing to do with any ancestor. You're going to say that he's born with guilt. He has to be born with guilt now? No, dude. Islam is fair, and it's not going to, no matter what his ancestors did, it doesn't matter, right? Or else Salman al-Farisi would have been called a Zoroastrian after he became Muslim. Right? Or what if you,
Or
what is the
Suhaib al-Rumi,
Zoroastrians done?
right?
What Mushrikeen al-Mak, why was Rasulullah doing dua for Umar ibn Khattab or Amr ibn Hisham? And after they became Muslim, Rasulullah didn't allow anybody to talk about their kufr past and bring that up even in an argument.
Imagine Salman al-Farsi giving advice at the Battle of Khandak, like, hey, you know, this is how
Subhanallah.
like, there's a no, you shouldn't be talking. You came from a structured, privileged background with the Persians. You guys are
'cause
world
they were
superpower.
educated.
You've been oppressing us. You don't get to talk.
Which they were.
Yeah,
The Persians
exactly.
were oppressing the Arabs.
Yeah, they were.
What
Of
about
course.
Suhaib al-Rumi, right? They would have
Yeah.
been like, hey, be quiet. You have no business talking to us. You're part of the Byzantine Empire that's been, ruthless around the whole world. Right?
And
So be
guys,
quiet.
one thing we have to make clear, I haven't read the comments. I don't plan on ever reading too many comments very often. But when we talk, the crux of all this, dude, between Muslim brothers and sisters, we have to be serious. When we're talking about this, we're not talking about a person, individual. We're talking about the ideas. We have to be able to separate. When I'm talking to my brother, I should be able to battle his ideas. And he should never feel, or she should never feel, that I'm talking about them directly. If Sim says something to me and I say to him, Sim, you know what? Everything that you mentioned to me, let's use Islam as a criterion, because Islam will dismantle all ideas that aren't from Allah. He should never take that personally. Maybe he
never be
could take it
offensive.
personally that, hey, I'm not witty enough to challenge this person. He's trying to make it be known. But that's how we reassure our brothers and sisters that we don't mean any of that. We're all trying to seek the truth. None of us should ever, ever feel in the war of ideas that it's a war against a person.
Yeah.
Ever. And Muslim brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, dude, that, that any type of discussion that we have, we should walk away with having love for our brothers and sisters, dude. That's all it comes down to, because we all want khair. But when Rasulullah, when he tells us to turn away from an argument, if someone just arguing when the ego comes in, that's when you stop, right? That's when you stop and you just, you know what, you're right, forget it. Because at that point, we don't want to dig a hole for our brother either, or dig a hole for ourselves, right? So at any point, we should never, ever, ever feel personal about any of these, man. We all love our Muslim brothers for the sake of Allah. I think all of us agree on this. No, whether we know a Muslim or we don't know a Muslim, bro, we're ready to take a bullet for any Muslim. Whether we know them, we don't know them.
Even if they're a critical race theorist.
No
Yeah,
matter what the
exactly.
case is.
So
Well,
even if
It
it
doesn't
actually,
matter to me, bro. It doesn't.
I will
doesn't.
make sure that I use my whatever privilege I have to defend you, because if you are under duress. But
We'll,
anyways,
we'll, we'll, we'll grab a white guy and throw him in front of us as a
I'll
bubble.
throw where's
You guys are crazy.
where's a resident white dude, white Muslim? Where is he at? He's not here today. So
He
but anyways,
flaked.
So look, here's the thing. But let me play devil's advocate.
What a nice choice of words.
They're not saying that that it's an individual responsibility. What they say is that, understand that your society today is framed with this white gaze, meaning that everything has been catered to the white race, the quote white race, and so people who are not of the white race, they have things that are it's more difficult for them. For example, the types of foods they eat, the type of clothing they buy in the stores, the type of hair products they have in the stores. These types of things are catered to a specific white culture that they totally disregard our cultures because they feel they're superior to us, and that's where it's coming from. In some ways, they'll say this, and when I hear that kind of argument, I understand what they're saying. That yes, you probably feel like an outsider in that way. That's fine, true, but then again, the same way if you went into Egypt or if you went into India or if you went into the Philippines, right? You're not going to find products that are catered to you in a majority country that doesn't have your majority.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not. It's like, just like if a white guy went to like Puerto Rico, if he went to like Colombia, he's not going to find the same stuff that he found in his own native country or wherever he came from, European country or American country, whatever he came from. He's not going to find that, right? Because he's not part of the dominant culture.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean they created this term called white gaze more, but what's the reality is
White
that
gays
they're-
like homosexuals.
no, the white gaze is
No.
whatever the
Oh.
white people find is beautiful.
Oh.
Homosexuality is a kind of so it's
It might
actually
be,
maybe
yeah.
men's fashion has a strong homosexual presence in it.
Yeah.
If you see a lot of the
Super
skinny
Super
jeans,
skinny, yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of influence from
Can
homosexuality.
you call it a homo gaze?
I don't want to get into that, but what I'm trying to say is that the white gaze is what is actually called colorism. It's really prevalent in every society. In parts of Africa where there's women with the lightest skin, they're always having the highest preference in or the most demand in marriage, whether it's in India, China.
Dude,
Afghanistan.
The funny thing is always the Arabs at the time Rasul Sallam preferred white skin.
Yeah. Isn't
People-
isn't that in the Quran, like fair women in Jannah with
Of course,
Dove
I mean,
eyes.
with
that's what it refers
breasts?
to. It says,
Yeah.
But it refers to.
Messing
But
around.
does that mean that,
The
that
hadith.
black? I mean, no.
That doesn't mean that, but I'm saying
is
is people what they'll do is since we're talking about ideas
Wait, what-
and
what was
critical
it?
race
What
theory,
was it? What-
but they'll talk about Allah. The hadith talks about the women of Jannah being fair and this and
What,
that.
and then wasn't it said blonde too or something like that? Or
Wallahu, I don't know about the hair.
I'm not sure.
Wallahu
I-
alam.
or maybe
the
there
thing
was
is
a
that
hadith.
if you have this idea, then what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? Right? Because
I mean, me look.
has the white gaze infiltrated the Quran? Is that what I mean? These are the conclusions
Yeah,
that
I
you
mean,
end up
I don't
taking.
know.
These are the
I mean-
problematic conclusions that you end up having conflict with when you have inherited ideas from a completely different background of philosophers and various
I've
conclusions
heard this
that they've
before, by the
made.
way. They'll say, "Oh, why does it mention the black heart and a white and like or white or nur is pure, right?
Yeah.
Like light and darkness is bad and light nur like lightness is good,
yeah,
right? Is there some kind of racial connotation here?
it has nothing to do with
Bro,
race.
I remember when I was young, we were in Medina with my dad. We used to work on the highways over there between Mecca and
I
Medina.
like how you said we. Anyways, go ahead.
I meant we by family.
Okay.
I'm 5 years old. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you were a child laborer.
Yeah.
No,
I was a migrant.
What I was trying to get at is he says that he's the people of Medina. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I had to live in the
Yani,
desert.
He says Yani all of a
Mecca
sudden.
highway,
Yani.
I had to live in the desert while my dad worked instead of.
true.
So anyone that rides on the Jeddah Mecca highway, Sim helped build that when he was 5 years old.
Somehow
Just remember
built that
Make the offer.
through some rocks there.
Mashallah.
Go ahead,
Mashallah.
son.
Mashallah.
Go ahead, son.
So what happened was this one night. Usually it's around the time when my dad comes home, and I run up to the door. I hear a knock. Right. I run up to the door.
Oh, you still remember stuff from back then?
Yeah. There's
That's
a lot of
beautiful.
memories. Yeah. So I run up to the door. I'm excited that my dad's going to be there, and I see a big, tall, black guy with he had reddish eyes because it's a desert. A lot of dust is. And I screamed at the top of my lungs because it's dark. There's no street lights or anything. You just saw a tall, dark man, and his eyes are kind of reddish from the dust in the desert. And I just screamed. I never saw a black man in my life, and. Bro, so what I'm talking about is I wasn't born racist, okay?
No, you
I love black people. But what I'm saying is that there's a familiarity thing among I've only seen brown people in my life at that point. I had only seen my people within my a color range or people who look a certain way that I was familiar with. It doesn't make you racist.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll be honest though. Listen, my first experience with race is completely different, and I'll tell you, it's crazy to me, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you this much, okay? So, Sim and Amir knew where I grew up. I grew up in an area where it was
More
pretty much-
frozen. It's more
More,
frozen.
more your camera's frozen, bro.
It's okay.
Oh, is it?
We
Hold
can
on,
still
I'm
hear
gonna
you.
have
It's all
to-
that counts.
Stop the cam, and I'm gonna
Oh,
have to start it again. Sorry.
That was a great face, though.
All right.
There it
Yeah,
is.
great.
Mashallah.
Anyway, so
He's a
look,
handsome guy,
the
mashallah.
thing is, they knew what part of the Chicago or the area that the suburb I grew up in, and that area was predominantly Italian, right? And back in the 80s, when people were coming off the mob era, and Italians were still considered to be the feared people, like the mobsters. I mean, there were a lot of them were retiring out in that area, and they were very racist. If anyone who knows old school Italians, not Americans born here, but old school, like old country Italians who are here, are we all frozen?
No, we're
Everybody?
fine. We're all
No,
fine.
someone says we're all frozen. You guys are frozen. I don't know.
I think
anyways,
it's true.
maybe okay. So, anyways, the point being is that the old school Italian dudes were racist. And to be honest, I went to some Italian classmate's house, and his his grandfather said, hey, who's this eggplant? Right? I mean, like, welcome, you know? And like, eggplant is a racist way to call somebody a black person, right? I had very curly hair when I was younger and I was darker. The whole idea is that, you know, the eggplant is kind of like darker skin and then, like, you know, the thing on the hair on the leaves on top or whatever, right? It's kind of just a derogatory way to refer to black
Thorough
people, right?
explanation there.
So that's what I got called. And I had no idea what that was, right? I figured out it was some old guy. You know, I've heard old racist uncles in the masjid too. Oh, whatever, right? But it dawned on me. My first actual real friend was a black guy, and his name was Waldron Nixon. Wally, if you're listening,
I remember
there,
Wally.
I
Yes,
got
you met him.
Yeah, Wally Nixon. That was
Yeah.
my first. Like, I mean, the first guy that hung out with me all the time. The first guy that would come out. I just knew him at the park, and he gravitated towards me. So one day at school, and this is how it happened. One day we're at school. He sees me fighting these Italian kids. Every day was a fight at the bus and after school, during school, at lunchtime, and after school. I was fighting 3 times a day, and partly because my brother was also hard of hearing, so they would try to tease on him. And you know, my older brother,
I remember
when you're
those
younger,
days,
right? 1 grade higher, 2 grade higher, that's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about huge difference. I'm fighting kids that are double my size, right? 3 times a day almost, right?
Yeah.
I'm Irish and Italian guys. I'm fighting them all day long. So this guy sees me, goes, bro, we got to bond together, Mort. You know, we're colored people. We got to bond together. You know,
I think all of us kind of have something like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then, I mean, he called me to his house. Like, hey, look, we're going to become blood brothers. And he, like, you know.
Blood Brothers
fake
podcast?
You guys, the original Blood Brothers.
Check this
Dilly,
out. It's kind
sorry.
of cute if you think about it. He fake cuts his hand and he puts like ketchup on it and doesn't mind. He puts it together and he's like licks it, right? And I'm like, I'm not gonna lick your hand, dude. I'm not gonna lick any of this stuff. He's like, that's fine. I did anyways. I'm like, okay. But I mean, what I'm saying is that was my first understanding that okay, this guy views me the same color as him. But in my whole mind, what I wanted to get to is that these are kafirs and I'm a Muslim. That the whole time I was thinking like, hey, look how pathetic these non-Muslims are. They're trying to attack me for no reason, right? I never thought about it like, oh, they're white people and they're black people or Mexicans or not. I thought about like, hey, they don't like me because of my religion, because of what I stand for. I mean, keep in mind, dude, I would come and openly say I'm a Muslim. I would openly say I have this or Eid or I'm going. I wouldn't, and it was just the way I was brought up, right? I never had anything I never hid anything.
Yeah,
from
Mark
anybody.
used to back in the day. I remember he used to rock that turban with the cane. Remember that? The
I
big
would-
old
I mean,
turban with
that's
the cane
even
walking
later
around.
on- No, that's even later on in life. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
talking about even at a young age. I brought my dad's scimitar to school on a Halloween and I wrapped it in like, you know, in aluminum foil. I'm walking around school with this thing.
What's that?
Right? So
What's a
what-
scimitar?
A scimitar?
is a
Yeah.
curved
That's a
sword.
weapon of the Muslim, of
It's a
the
curved
Mu'mineen.
sword.
Yeah, it's like a sword.
It's a curved sword.
Yeah, I don't know if
Man,
the Bengalis call it.
give
but
me
we
your
call it
Muslim card right
shamshir.
now.
Hold
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. You know, anyway, so the
How do you
point
not
is
know what a scimitar is?
It's okay, bro.
I'm one of the pacifist types.
That's the first thing he
Clearly.
said. I
that,
wanted
you know,
to
if
pass
you
it.
ask him what an M16 or AR-15 is, he'll know that Republican gun more. But look, anyways, the point is that I never understood race until somebody had to tell me that, hey, you're like me, you're colored and you're not white, right? It took another person to make me understand that, right? And the thing is, like, I never really viewed it that way. We're taught these things that, hey, they don't like you because you're darker. That was the first time I was told they don't like you because you're darker, right? And it could have been anything really at that time. You know, it could have been like, oh, he's different. You know, who cares? I mean, some of those Italian guys would talk to me after I beat their butts. You know, after I whooped them, they would come and become friends. I know one guy named Rob Nero who tried to invite me to his birthday
Rob
party after I beat his ass. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it was just very strange. I mean, but so what I'm trying to say is that we learn these things, right? As growing up, we're taught these things, and certain people you hang out with will also influence the way you view things. And alhamdulillah for Islam that we can push those things away
Yeah, dude.
and say, look, what is the Quranic opinion and the Sunnah opinion on this issue? Is that person to be judged for everything he does? If he makes a mistake, even in judging me, let's say he is racist, do I always hold it against him? Or do I, if he corrects it and I explain to him, do I still hold it against him? Or if he has children, do I tell my children his father was racist to me, so you have to be racist to them, or hold them accountable for his father? We don't talk about these things.
You will not. I'm no lie. There's a black critical race theorist online, and you know, I clicked on one of his friends. He commented or something. He was like, they were all like going at me, calling me a racist or whatever online, and I'm like, what are these guys? You know? And I saw one of their Facebook posts. I put it up on the screen right now, but you know, you don't want to be involved in lawsuits or anything. But what I saw was this guy is talking about the early Muslim society and criticizing the Sahaba for how they treated Bilal.
I don't know.
I mean, using the same tools. So this is why it's so important that we completely dismantle these ideas from the Muslim community. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala already has, and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has already made it clear to us what justice is, how we treat one another, how we don't, how we look beyond our tribal affiliations. The term asabiya is nationalism, things that were pre-Islamic ideas that were related to tribe, race, nationality, all these things.
Fake bonds.
Yeah, fake
artificial bonds that are so real.
Yeah, and that the true bond is our Islamism. We never ask about anyone, any of our listeners when we meet them, right? We never ask about their ethnicity. Hey, what are you? Where are you from? I mean, it's not like if we know it, we know it, but it doesn't even factor into our discourse or discussion with them. One of the brothers recently, he was an Arab brother, and he said, "Hey, excuse me."
You mean we're not supposed to, but it does happen.
So it does happen like in a human way, right? But it happens because it happens
what part
because.
Of the Arab world are you from? What part of the Indo-Pac world are you from? It's not so much like, oh, are you that because I need to know? I have a preset idea of you. It's more curiosity, like, hey, oh, you're Arab. Are you from Yemen? I ask it a lot of times, or find where Arab people are from, or Indian. Are you from? Hey, are you Pakistani or Indian? It's just because we feel attracted to people that we're closer to, right? You know what I mean? Like that we have some kind of common bonds with. It's natural. Right,
well,
it's not like it's to be racist.
I was discussing some problems of the Muslim community with a white Arab brother, and he was like saying, "Hey, there's some problems with this." He put all these prefaces before he made his criticism. I'm like, bro, you don't have to do that. Like, we're Muslims. Like, I know, but some people like, yeah, I know, dude, we're not those kind of Muslims who are super thin-skinned that they can't handle any kind of critique towards their people. Everyone has problems. We have to work through them. And things like that, but this whole way of just having a discussion where you're having to make all these clauses and polite decoration around any kind of discussion because people's feelings are going to get hurt. Because I mean, this is what the way discourse has kind of taken place. But should we move on to other subjects?
I actually want to propose something. Maybe the listeners can I had an idea. I was talking to Sheikh Amr and Mort before the show. We could do some kind of social experiment where they could fund a documentary. So I was thinking, maybe we could wear hidden cameras and just go up to random soccer white moms in Starbucks and just be like, "Hey miss, how you doing?" Small talk and "Oh, you must not be from around here. Where are you from? Oh, you were born here." No, where are you really from? Italy, Germany? Because we always get asked. Because white folks never get asked about where they from. It's always you know what I'm saying. So I thought
Mort does. I bet Mort goes around.
I don't think white people even know where they're from. A lot of them don't.
I don't think
kind
that's
of
true.
claim.
I think there's a few of them who are German. They know their German background. There's a large.
No. I know people who know.
Most of them are
Irish
mutts.
history. No. But I mean, most of I don't know. I mean, I've met white people who know exactly where they come from. They know their history. They know if they're Scandinavian, if they're Norwegian, if they're Swedish, if they're a German, or they know if they're Irish. They know these kind of things, right? I mean, not maybe the ones that were here for 9 or 8 generations, they probably don't really know too much. But the ones that are recent migrants, the last the 2 generations, they definitely know where they come from. They even carry their names, right? But the thing is that I'll tell you this much. Me personally, I always say, well, what are you exactly? I mean, yeah, I'm an American too, but what are you exactly? Are you? And it's been so common for me. I don't. It's not even I intend to do it. It's just that I understand that
it's a cool conversation. We want to know where people are from, dude. We love history of people.
I know that Americans are an amalgamation of many different people, right? Meaning that we have so many different, we have different ethnicities that make up America. And I know that there's Irish, there's British, English, Anglo. There's also, Norwegian, there's Scandinavian. I mean, all these things that come up, German, Germanic people. So I always ask them, I said, hey, where are you from? Yeah, I mean, actually, this guy, Turk, he magically click in the text. I always ask him, I call him my Viking. That's one of the first things I asked him is, where'd you come from? He knows it. I mean, I know he's Viking ancestor. I always say, Till Valhall, you know what I mean? I just know these things, right? Because I'm genuinely curious. I don't feel like it's insulting to ask somebody where you come from. Right. I mean, you know what I mean? Maybe someone, I think maybe Mahin may be right. Some of them may be offended. Oh, you don't think I'm an American? it has nothing to do with you being in America. I think it'd be a funny experiment, but I can imagine them going back and saying, "Oh my God, these Muslims think we're outsiders. Oh, they're taking over."
Especially with a southern accent. Hey, I'm what? You want to share that story?
Which one?
When you're
What's wrong with your
Whitestown
ass?
and Brownsburg.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
man.
like
no, there's something happened as soon as we walked in Indiana. We took a road trip, and my family was not very fond of it. I was having a lot of fun, bro. I didn't get that much sleep, so I was just like, I felt like I was like in Trump County, so I just started, celebrating Trump. Not intentionally. I just was trying to just make my wife and kids feel uncomfortable, So I would just, my accent while we were in Indiana, as soon as the GPS says, "Welcome to Indiana," the
All
whole
of a sudden
time
you
in
had a southern
Indiana,
accent.
all Southern, man. And I was having a lot of fun, But, yeah, I'm going to save that story for another time, man, because we had a lot of fun with that. Well, what is it called? It's called
Whitestown and Brownsburg.
Is it
Whitestown?
Whitesville and Brownsburg.
Whitesville or
Whitestown.
Whitestown and Brownsburg.
And Brownsburg, yeah.
Yeah.
So the white folks go to Whitestown.
So real quickly, did any of you guys catch the Democratic debates at all? Any of you guys watch that at all? Anyone sim?
I saw a little bit of it. Apparently Julian Castro made a fool of himself. Is what I heard.
Julian, not Julian. Julian.
Julian?
It's a Mexican name. It's Julian.
It's not Julian.
No, it's Julian Castro.
Okay.
Actually. I say it right, bro. You're culturally insensitive now. That's very, very wrong.
How dare you
White
mispronounce?
gaze coming up upon you. No, but look, it was interesting. I don't want to spend too much time on it, to be honest, but it's definitely interesting. I think that basically some of the Republican candidates were basically saying, "Who cares about the Constitution? We're just going to ban guns," and I'm not down with that. I'm a Second Amendment. I'm a firm supporter of the Second Amendment. So I think anybody that wants to say, "Hey, we're just going to throw the Constitution out the window," you're not going to get elected, okay? Because the Constitution is important. So that was Kamala Harris, by the way, who decided to say,
Kamala.
Yeah, Kamala. Harris, that we're not going to follow the Constitution, and we're just going to make an executive order and ban the guns. And even Sleepy Joe Biden said, "You know what? We have a thing called the Constitution. You can't do that." You know what I mean? And she's like, "Joe, just say yes, we can." Like, yes, we can. What? Throw the Constitution out? Like, not follow the Second Amendment? Like, what are you asking them to do? That was a very interesting change. Oh,
I just said an amendment.
I just saw the Whitesville Brown. But check it out. That was kind of it for that. I mean, for the Democratic debate, I don't think it was anything like too, controversial. To be honest, it's more of the same thing. The only thing is that Yang, that guy, wants to give out. Apparently, he's pledged to give out $120,000 this year, $1,000 a month for 10 families if they can prove why they need that money, or to why we should give money back to the Americans. Also, he has an interesting plan about campaigning and how American citizens will get a certain amount of dollars to spend on any campaign they want to, and you take away corporate lobbies from campaigning. It's an interesting concept. So, I mean, Yang is making some interesting, out of the ordinary, like unorthodox, out of the box, plans.
I hate to burst everyone's bubble, but Trump's going to be 2020, yo.
Oh, he probably will be. No, I'll tell you this much. It depends on the economy. If the economy is doing good, Trump wins. If the economy is doing bad, Trump is out. That's how I look at it. People don't want their money screwed with. Cash rules everything around me. Cream.
Wu-Tang Clan.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Yeah.
Right, remember that, right? So that's just what it is, right? So you can't. If people's money's not right, they're not going to vote for you. If your money's right and you're safe, they're going to vote for you.
I agree with more there. I think it's going to come down to
Comes
economy.
on dollar bills.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know more. Can you read Bangla or Hindi by any chance, Mahin?
I learned in third grade. I forgot it all. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, because somebody in the language of in their comments said GPS never say welcome, and actually it does say welcome, but I can't read what the name is.
Oh, sorry about that. Is that Bangla or Hindi?
It looks like Bangla, but I can't tell.
I can't tell. I don't know. I can't read it. Yeah, but by the way, Mahin, do you want to let these guys know that we'll probably be at MOTHW, whatever?
Yeah, probably we have to be there because we have a booth.
Yeah.
We have a booth there. So Muslims of the world in Indianapolis will be there. At least right now, it's
What date is that?
October 10th and 11th, I think, right?
October 12th and 13th, the second weekend of October.
Indianapolis was a cute city. I had to stop by there, and it was a pretty cute city.
It's cute, huh?
It's cute. It's like a
October
downtown.
12th and 13th.
It's so
yeah.
nice and mini and cute. It's like you get spoiled by Chicago. So it was nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So, do you guys want to talk about the main elephant?
what we just did. Oh,
Hello.
Surya.
I'm still trying to lose
Yeah.
weight. Oh, sorry.
Oh, HY.
Yeah. How are you going to ignore that? Oh, mine didn't want to talk about it. Mine thought he's going to get scot-free not talking about this.
What about HY? You give
Wait.
a
Oh,
pass.
Maheen doesn't want to talk about this.
He's got a lot of friends at
Oh,
Zaytuna.
dude. If we don't want to, if he doesn't want to talk about, it, let's not talk.
You don't have
about
to talk
No,
about it.
no,
You
no,
can
no,
just
no,
plead
no,
the
no,
fifth.
no, no.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
More. We don't want him to feel uncomfortable.
That's
dude.
all good. We could chat.
So here's what happened. We're going to go ahead and play
So
it
up
here
until now,
for-
ladies and gentlemen, this is all just a warm up. We were just shooting the breeze. This is where we're
Now
actually
the
getting into the
episode
podcast.
starts.
Now.
Here's where it starts.
Here where it begins, inshallah.
Swallow the red pill now.
How's that revolution looking for you?
I didn't want to rehear this.
You know what the slogan of the Syrian revolution was? Who knows what the slogan was?
What's up with that song? Beautiful background though. Sami
Sha'b
Yusuf.
Suri
Sami
ma
Yusuf.
bandal. The Syrian people will not be humiliated. That was their slogan. They're all shouting it in the streets. Now, all these poor innocent people are begging non-Muslims to let them into their countries. They're
So-
fleeing across the ocean in boats. Allah can humiliate whomever He pleases. Man ahana sultan, ahanahu Allah. If you humiliate a ruler, God will humiliate you. That's a hadith in Tirmidhi. If you humiliate a ruler, God will humiliate you. Why? Because the Prophet said, "Al-mu'minu la yudhillu nafsahu." The believer does not humiliate himself. Ahmed Zarruq said, when he attacks a ruler and he's not capable of doing it. In other words, they have power, you don't have power. If you attack them, you humiliate yourself. You have humiliated. You can blame the ruler all you want. The guy is a bad guy. I'm no fan of that man. I'm no fan of the rulers there. Saddam, I was no fan of Saddam. But now we see the wisdom of why these people were in those places.
Okay, so that's enough. I don't want to hear it.
That
It
was-
just
that was-
boils my blood
That's
whenever.
the first time I heard it. That was awesome.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I agree with everything. I never heard that talk clip before. That was deep.
Shut up.
And then the sheet in the background was like, I was getting mad spiritual.
May Allah clean your heart out of this
Sufi
filthy.
gaze on him.
So anyway, look. First, let's break it down.
That was
okay?
it for real. That's why y'all were pissed.
Yeah,
Seriously?
Of course.
We'll we'll break it down, inshallah. No worries.
So you think? Wait.
Wait,
let-
that's the first time I actually heard the clip, by the way.
This is interesting to me.
Say
though.
wallah.
Wait,
Well,
say
wallah.
hold on, wait.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I did not hear the clip till just now.
Wait. This interesting.
And y'all are pissed about that?
Are you out of your mind?
Don't worry.
Wait.
Oh.
I want to address this.
Oh, this is gonna be awesome.
Hold on.
I had no
Maheen.
idea. This guy doesn't even know
Wait.
what we're talking about. You don't know what's
Wait,
going on
Maheen,
social
you-
media
I
for the
know what's
past 3
going
days.
on, but I didn't listen to the clip. 'Cause I know what Sheikh Hamza's political positions are generally. So I'm
Well,
like, there's
Na'udhu
nothing-
Billah, what's wrong with your heart?
Let's talk about
Oh
it first.
my God. Okay,
Inshallah,
let's
we'll
get
take him through the journey,
Wait, hold on,
inshallah, which
Sim,
will make
wait
it
a
easier
second.
for him.
Wait, I want to ask Maheen something.
Yeah.
Do you think it's appropriate that when Hamza Yusuf said when man ahana sultan, ahana Allah? Like I mean, you think that fa'ahana Allah? You think this is fa'ahanahullah basically? You think this is okay that Allah is humiliating the Syrian people because they revolted against Bashar al-Assad?
How
think it's fair to say
mu-
that?
What's the death count there?
Over 500,000 people dead.
But does that mean humiliation? What was
So,
the death count?
more, I
in-
think,
Do
I
you-
think
do you
it-
know how
I
the
think
Syrian-
you're asking
do you-
this for somebody who doesn't know what's happening in the clip, and I don't mean this to be condescending. That question is too premature to ask right now. More that question should be asked later after somebody already understands what's kind of happening. You know what I'm saying?
No, this is even forget about all this. These people didn't rebel against their ruler.
They didn't.
These are people who were. There were a bunch of little kids who had spray painted the walls. If you go online and you look up the origins of the Syrian revolution, there were a bunch of little kids in the city called Dara in Syria. They went and spray painted graffiti on walls that were anti-government or something. They're little kids, and what the government did was they rounded up these kids and they put them in prison. So these days went by and the parents were like
When you
getting
say kids,
frustrated.
meaning under the age of 18.
Yeah. These were like 14, 15-year-old, kids. And the days went by and their parents are like super concerned about them. And they're like, where are our kids? We want them back. And they started protesting. And this is how the revolution started, where these people started getting shot down, that they're protesting for their kids to be released from prison, and the police just started shooting at them. What's called the mukhabarat, the secret intelligence and the security apparatus in Syria just started firing away at these parents. This was not people who just took up arms and started fighting against the Syrian people or the Syrian government.
Was there a point in time when there was an armed rebellion? Like it did transition to an armed rebellion?
Yes, after
That's
the
what it's
mass,
become now, yeah.
after these apparatus just started mowing them down, they're like, forget this. We're not just going to take this.
Can we talk about? Can we mention one thing? If you go early on, before the first armed defense that the Syrian people took, they were saying in the streets that we did not expect this from Bashar al-Assad. We thought he was educated in the West. He was young. He was from among us.
His father was much more brutal.
Yeah, Hafiz al-Assad was responsible for the massacres in Hama. For those of you that don't know, why many of the Syrians actually were in the UAE and other areas at the time,
In Jordan,
scholars,
yeah.
because of the fact that his father, la'natullah alayhi, he actually killed people and buried over them in Hama, killed them and then buried and built a city
Surrounded
over
the
them.
town, and a bombardment of killing 50,000 people on how many days was it?
I forget.
Yeah.
I think
I
it was
can't
7 days. I forget what it was
It was
exactly.
less than 2
Anyways,
weeks, I think.
built roads over their mass graves pretty much and continued like nothing happened, right? So they thought that, you know what, Bashar al-Assad was definitely going to be different. Bashar minna, yani. They thought that he was from them and he was going to listen to them and say, be reasonable with them and say, hey, he was educated in the West. He understands that people have certain freedoms and expressions, right? And he's young and he didn't really want this position. He kind of took it because his brother died, et cetera, et cetera. And they didn't expect this reaction that the Shabiha would be sent over there to basically round up people and shoot them. And one of the most defining moments in the protest, first of all, people were protesting in the streets. If you remember, they had snipers from either Bashar's order or from his camp, with or without his order. But something happened and people pro-Bashar was sniping protesters in the face. I remember seeing the most horrible video of a man just holding a sign. The next thing you know, you see literally his face shot off and he literally has no chin. Can you imagine walking around with half your face missing immediately after that happens for holding up a sign? So when you tell me that they're making khuruj and they're making like rebellion against their leader, it's nonsense. After you see somebody get shot with their face.
Wait, hang on, Mort. I want my mind is still blown at Maheen not being, not really understanding how or why people are upset. So I need him to see it again, okay? Because I think he didn't see the entire thing, okay?
I think I focused
so
more.
Here. Why don't you
before you start,
yeah.
because I think the people were concerned about the cackling. And I was like, that's what people were hung.
But you didn't even see it, so how would you know?
You just showed me that.
Yeah, but look right here. Look. Here. Hang on.
How's that revolution looking for you?
Smiling and laughing.
You know what the slogan of the Syrian revolution was? Who knows what the slogan was?
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
So, right there.
Huh?
You don't see that problematic at all.
Honestly, I don't.
So let's
You
give
don't?
some background.
Oh my God! May Allah protect you.
I mean, protect all of us. There's a reason. So if he
I mean,
doesn't-
I can see why people think that. I personally see. I'm like, well, it's within the law. We are. See, okay, so I knew what people were upset about this week. I didn't watch this clip until just now. You showed it to me, and I knew it was in the context of a greater 1 hour clip, right? And
So?
I'm in the position that like something like that. I don't know if it's necessarily condescending. I don't see it that way.
You don't see it that way?
No.
No, that's
absolutely
fine.
not.
How do you
Well-
see it then? That's fine. No, that's fine for right now.
Go ahead,
But
okay,
how do you
go
see? Well, how do you see it then?
I see he's almost like yeah, like what are you gonna do?
Okay, yeah. See, so that's the thing. When Maheen is saying that, he's not saying it from a place. He's not seeing what you see. He's not seeing what I see. He's seeing it differently.
I'm seeing chuckling and belittling.
Let me
and
tell
saying, and someone saying that people are being punished because Allah is humiliating them.
I know. You know, for me, when I saw this, you know why I wasn't surprised? I wasn't surprised at all, to be honest with you. When I grew up, I heard this kind of... When people made a big deal about it, I was like, yeah, I kind of get it, but I really don't care. In the grand scheme of things happening in the world, I really don't care about what he says as far as that's concerned. When I was growing up, when I used to go on Jamaat, and I love the brothers in Jamaat, but we always heard people, when I was growing up, wallahi, I heard this over 10 times in my life.
Yeah.
Even when the Bosnian War was happening, I still remember I was going at Jamaat as a little kid, right? I was like 10 or 11 years old. Like, the reason why this happened to the Bosnians is because their sins. The reason why this is happening is because their sins. The reason why... And I used to hear even uncles say this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they left Islam and this and that.
Yeah.
I used to hear this growing up.
Right.
But the thing that I find intriguing is that
scholar.
this individual,
Yeah.
he's very well-read and political. Dude, a lot of stuff that I learned growing up about capitalism and how the world works and how treacherous the world is and why wars happen was because of Hamza Yusuf.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I was like, okay, whatever, dude. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I don't like what he's saying, but I don't care. I'm not active on social media anyway. For me, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of things I don't really care about anymore. I care about Muslim people, but people that come out and say stupid stuff, I really don't care about. I don't have time to
Yeah,
waste
so-
my
so look,
emotion
why
on them. My emotions are much more valuable than that, right?
Why I
But I'm
think
not
it's
saying that people
offensive-
shouldn't have an uproar. Sorry to cut you off, Mort. But what I'm saying is this. Now, bringing this back to perspective, is that if somebody doesn't realize that there's an issue with that, there's many reasons for that. The first thing is, no matter what it is, one drop of Muslim blood is more valuable than anything, even the haram and its surrounding, spilled unjustly, right? And for Muslims to go through something like this, every Muslim has to feel the pain. If you and I go to sleep at night not being concerned, and if we don't shed tears about what's happening to the Muslim world, there's a very big problem with us. Humongous problem. Even to the point where Rasulullah said that they're not from amongst my ummah, the people who aren't concerned with my ummah, right? So there's something very problematic to my Muslim brothers that are very, very dear to me. If something's happening to them and someone's belittling something like that, dude, there's a huge problem. Because my love of my Muslim brothers and sisters has to do with my love of Allah. If I love my brothers and sisters less, that means my love for Allah is less. If I love my brothers and sisters, I have to think of my sisters and my brothers as the children of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And what would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do if he found out this is happening to his brothers and sisters and his children? We're all, essence, his children, right?
Well,
So-
no matter what Maheen says, he realized it was wrong, what he said. And he understands the gravity of what he said,
Who said?
Sheikh Hamza.
Yes.
No,
And
that's
he
what I'm saying.
re- and
Maybe
he re-
even as of right now, he doesn't. So that's
No,
what
no,
I'm trying to explain.
no, he does. You don't know he
Sheikh
really.
Hamza put an apology out.
No,
but like,
I'm not talking about Sheikh Hamza for right now. Forget about that. I'm talking about because, dude, what the reason why I'm glad Maheen said that is there's other people that I know that think like that too.
Because yeah, so here my family,
what they're
my family is super close to the Syrian people. Like my wife's best friend
Yeah.
is a Syrian woman. You know that my kids' best friends are Syrian refugees. There's the single family. The Syrian revolution is something very close to our heart. Okay,
Yeah.
we don't rub elbows with other bourgeoisie brown people and other people in our community. We have people who we've
Alhamdulillah.
identified that we
Yeah.
want to be close with.
Of course,
you know?
your brothers and sisters.
And
yes.
when I saw that, it really boiled my blood, and I went to town on Facebook because, like, that was like a straight up slap to
Yeah.
every Muslim in the world.
Yeah, I know.
And anyone who feels otherwise, then you really need to reconfigure your understanding of your faith. There's no other way I could.
It's a
try to
matter of
explain it for
aqidah.
you.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
It's a matter of
you
aqidah.
don't understand how important your brotherhood and the incredible oppression that's happening in the Muslim world.
Yeah.
You're just so clueless about what's happening around you that you framed your world into tasawwuf or tazkiyah or other phrases that are work on yourself and forget about the rest of the world. And that's what his whole speech was about. Like, make sure that you fix yourself.
Yeah.
That's
I
not,
heard the whole speech,
and
yeah.
that whole speech was completely dog crap. No offense to him as a person. It was just, oh, fix yourself before you fix others. That's not how the Sahaba were.
That's not how the world
That's not how the Sahaba worked. They improved themselves while improving their family, while they improved society. Everything happened together. You don't just lock yourself. You don't become Jordan Peterson and you say, you know what, clean up my room and I'm forgetting about everything else. No, that's not how the world works. That's not how a Muslim operates. A Muslim operates on many different levels.
Yes.
Internally, in his soul, in his family, and then he extends from that as his capacity grows.
Yeah.
If your capacity is only within you, only working on yourself,
That's
that
greedy.
your heart is so black and wretched that you have to that's the only thing you can work on. I understand that, but I don't
But it's
see.
actually,
I don't
a type
see
of
that.
greed.
But I don't see that as
You know
a
what-
general advice that you give to the rest of the Muslims that, you know what, fix yourselves before you fix your.
Why
that-
you don't? Yeah, they say that. Why are you worried about all those other people?
One
Yeah.
second, Amr. You know what this reminds me of? You know when Jamal Abdel Nasser had killed Sayyid Qutb, rahimahullah.
Yeah.
Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, he actually sent a letter to Jamal Abdel Nasser, and he actually wrote a letter. He goes, he starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, من عبد العزيز بن عبد الله بن الباز إلى رئيس جمال عبد الناصر السلام على من اتبع الهدى يقول الله عز وجل, and he recites Surah An-Nisa to him.
Allahu Akbar.
Right? ومن يقتل مؤمنا متعمدا فجزاؤه جهنم
Allahu Akbar.
خالدين فيها وغضب الله عليه ولعنه وأعد له عذابا عظيما.
4 things, not just one thing. Yes.
And then he says, and he ends it there, and he goes, "As-salam," and that's all he puts at the end of that. And what
Can
I'm
you
saying
explain
is
to
that-
the people? Can you just read can you just translate what you were just reading? Because a lot of people
so
may not know what you're
basically,
saying.
what he said is that this is a letter. This is Min Abdul Aziz bin Abdullah bin Al-Baz or bin Baz, and he says this is a letter from me to Jamal Abdel Nasser, and he says Assalamu min attaba al-huda, and he gives him the greetings and saying that a peace and may the guidance be upon you, essentially, or guided to you. And then he goes, يقول الله عز وجل in the Quran, the verse from the Quran in Surah I think it's Nisa verse 93. It says, whoever kills a believer intentionally, his reward is hell, and where he will eternally abide in there forever. And Allah has become angry, غضب الله, right? It became angry with him and has cursed him and has prepared for him a very big or a great punishment for that person.
Yeah.
So
And that is basically the
But
advice.
the
this isn't
interesting
the-
thing is, let me just cap that off.
Yeah.
We have to remember, Sheikh bin Baz and the Saudi scholars, even though disagreed heavily with Sheikh Sayyid Qutb, all
Yeah.
right,
This is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
That because even we know that the Saudis they detested the whole Muslim Brotherhood movement. Sheikh bin Baz was even someone who was used to prop up ideas of Islam within the kingdom to support the legitimacy of the monarchy. But even him, knowing that if he wrote a letter of that in support of Sayyid Qutb, the man who wrote Milestones, by the way, guys, listen who this is. This is not someone like who's some small guy. That Nasheed Ghuraba you hear about, all these things you hear about, this emanates around this man, this great man in history. And, Sheikh bin Baz took the risk of actually writing this to the
it was a risk.
the-
It was a risk.
it was a risk. He
Big
literally
risk.
put himself on the line, but he spoke the truth, regardless of who liked it, who didn't like it. And I'm not saying we should, he's free of errors. Bin Baz, rahimahullah, has his own errors as well too. But understand that even this moved him to the point where he had to respond in that manner and remind him that if you kill an innocent life, you are cursed. Like of a Muslim, of a mu'min, you are cursed. Allah, his
Plus the anger
his
of
wrath is
Allah.
upon you.
Plus you're never going to be forgiven for. I mean, you're never, if it's too late, if you haven't,
Right.
and then you're going to be in Jahannam forever. I mean,
So how does this tie into what Hamza Yusuf was doing? Well, I'm not saying Hamza Yusuf is saying that he's supporting the killing of Syrians. No, but the idea that somehow that this idea of defending yourself and the idea of standing up for truth in front of the oppressor is wrong is completely ludicrous. It's not from within Islam. And another thing is, by the way, Amr, maybe you can correct me. The problem I have is even the hadith that he quoted. Yes, it's a hadith that's narrated, But there are other ones too that are different narrations that follow a different path. For example, man ahana sultan fil dunya ahanahu Allah yawm al qiyamah. Right? It's not even saying even in this life that Allah will punish him.
Very
Even in
good.
the next life.
Yeah. You have
Right?
to
So
take all
I'm
the
saying, why did
narrations
you
together.
exclude these variations of that? And there's also ones talk about Quraysh. Man ahana Qurayshin, they'll also be they're cursed, right? But how can we ignore these ones, right? And also, why ignore the fundamental point that it is when the ruler is a Muslim? He has to be a Muslim, not some regular, like, I mean, you're not talking about people that are like, non-Muslims ruling over you that are oppressing you. No, it has to be a Muslim sultan, right? I
Yeah.
mean, what about the example of Abdullah bin Hudhafa when he didn't want to abide to the Roman, the Heraclius or whatever, the governor of him? He didn't take any of his demands. And unless he felt like it was within the, I don't want to take too long here, but you guys know the story. Maybe someone can relate to
No,
the
go
story.
ahead and finish your thought, man, because
Well,
it's important.
the thing is, like Abdullah, when they got caught by the Romans, him and his companions were there. They wanted them to leave Islam. They wanted them to say, "Hey, just praise me as the ruler, right? And leave Islam. I'll spare you." He's like, "No way, I can't do it. Allah is the only one we recognize. We don't recognize anybody else but you, your authority." They said, "Okay, let me make a big pot here of oil, like oil essentially." And he said, "Okay, if you don't say to me that you recognize me, my authority, each one of your companions, I'm going to put them in this boiling pot one by one until you,
Of oil, cauldron of boiling oil.
yeah, exactly, until you recognize my authority." And Abdullah bin Hudhafa didn't do anything. He said, "Okay, you know what? He's just trying to maintain his resistance." So one of the Sahabas, a few of them get put in there, or his companions, and he said, "I saw them burn like chicken would burn in oil. Like you would see how they would, how the skin becomes, right, and how they perished." And so he's troubled now that, what? Oh my God, these people are suffering now because of me. So he says, he starts bargaining. This Roman ruler is saying, "Hey, he's not moving on this. Let me try to compromise." He says, "If you kiss my head, right, I will let these people go." And so he thinks to himself, you know what? This is not recognizing his authority. It's not praising him in any way. For me, it's just a way for me to get these Muslims safe. So I will do that, and therefore, they will be safe from this harm. And so he does that. He kisses the forehead, and like the Roman ruler met his agreement or kept his promise and freed them. And when Abdullah bin Hudhafa went back to Umar bin Khattab during this rule, by the way, he narrated to him what happened, fearing that maybe what he did was wrong because, he kind of kissed him on the forehead. Was it an acknowledgement of his leadership or his rule? And Umar said, "What you did, you saved these Muslims. Everyone should come kiss your forehead."
He made all the Muslims line up and kiss his forehead. Yep.
Of Abdullah bin Hudhafa, right? And so what I'm saying is that these are the people that we looked up to in history. The ones that would walk into into Persian kingdoms, jumping off their horse and stabbing their Persian rugs with their spears and sitting on the thrones, right? Not recognizing their throne, not recognizing their authority.
Abdullah bin Zubair.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so like you're telling us now that we should be complicit and we should just be okay. I mean, I'm not saying that we should all just somehow jump up and do something.
Look, we're not saying go for like the Chinese Uyghurs in China. There's no way they can fight back against. There's no way that they should even protest because the Chinese government is going to smash them, right? If I was in that area of East Turkestan, I would encourage those brothers and sisters to try to find a way out of the country so that they can live somewhere else where they would have more freedom, because that's just no way to live. They're either going to get smashed by the government, because
which shouldn't be happening in the world to any Muslim in the first place.
I mean,
just something else we should talk
these
about.
These people didn't do anything, and they're getting oppressed, right?
Yeah.
The Uyghurs in China, they didn't do anything.
Yeah,
there was one, I think one terrorist incident or that was like years ago, but they did not do anything to deserve the wholesale slaughter that's really.
And how would
they're experiencing right now.
How would somebody feel if somebody laughed about
or
chuckled about the Chinese?
Erdogan, right? Because remember, me and Sim talked about this. We liked Erdogan, but the fact that he took that side, it's disgusting to us. We said that's unacceptable to us, right? That you can't side with that kind of stuff. If it's unacceptable for Erdogan to do this, to excuse that, it should also be unacceptable for us to excuse Hamza Yusuf for doing that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why people are upset that, hey, you should know better as a scholar that people endure hardship. Not when you suffer under these kinds of things, it's not because Allah has humiliated you. It has nothing to do with that.
So the terminology. Okay, so for example, when Sim played it, are you done? Are you done more? Are you anything else? I want to just a couple points I want to get into. Okay, so it was true. First time I saw that video clip was just now, right? I did watch his apology video already. I watched it earlier today. So I skipped the I skipped the part where he apologized for.
It's like watching the end of the movie.
But like, okay,
you already had a soft spot. For
no, but for me,
he's
know,
coming from a biased standpoint. He's got a lot of HY buddies
the
as
white
well.
gaze,
So.
man. You gaze upon the white Hamza.
Well, you know, more.
He's got the white gaze going on.
You remember one of the things that I talked about in like side plug for the new channel. Mort got a sneak peek at my new show, by the way. But I talk about how a lot of times when I came out of the Mudkali movement of the Salafi Dawah. And so political quietism and obedience to the rulers.
You love that stuff.
Yeah, that's my thing.
That's why I'm understanding where he's coming from.
Yeah, so
he doesn't
that's
mean
my
any ill intention.
that's my default position. And so when Sheikh Hamza is coming down, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I really agree with that. It makes sense because that's how I learned Islam.
Of course.
So I've never had a problem with Sheikh Hamza's positions on UAE and all this stuff, or even Trump. I mean, like, you know, he might be. I was like, he might be wrong, but it's not a black and white issue where I think it's like he's completely wrong, right? I was like, he might be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I've always felt Sheikh Hamza is someone who cares for the ummah. So with that background in mind, I'm like, okay, I felt what I saw on social media this week was people who already had an axe to grind with Sheikh Hamza just doubling down more, just more ammo for them.
No, I saw people who were genuinely on the fence. They're like, well, you know what, it's problematic. You know, you shouldn't. He probably wants to do good. Those people that was like proof in the pudding. That I'm like, okay, these guys were right all along. The
Syrian friend told him he was offended by it.
Well, I'm sorry.
Some guy who has no axe to grind with him said he's offended by what he said. He mentioned that in his own apology video.
No, yeah. So I'm saying that
Hamza Yusuf's own friends that were upset.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So like, I would say there's one. That's one angle, but that's the hard doubling down was that. Now there are people I spoke to, like, for example, some mashayikh who Sheikh Hamza's their teachers, and they were upset about it, right? But I think there's a lot of layers. I don't think it's just this one incident. I think it's stuff that's been piling on.
Yeah, well, of course. If it was just a misspeak, well, what are we crazy here? Like the guy, like, we're not going to acknowledge anything that he's done with the amazing institution Zaytuna that he implemented and all the various lectures he's done over the course of decades. You know, no one's. If this was one out of you know, or even Muslims are so much more forgiving than anything. Yeah, but this happened because of numerous engagements that he's done with the UAE. He's criticized the Palestinian movement over a number of years, and people kept on giving it the blind eye. Like, you know what, he's doing good. He's trying to, you know, make the world a better place. He's trying to make Muslims safe in America, and this is kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was enough is enough. I mean, I have another video here where he's just going to town on the Palestinians, where he's saying that, like, the Palestinians shouldn't resist at all, and that they should.
Yeah, I saw that on Raja's.
By the way, but Mort's thing froze. I mean, to be honest, I don't know. Like,
hey, here's another one because.
وفعلا يعني قالوا نحن ضعاف نحن عجزة ساعدونا والله سيرون كثير من العالم يتعاطفوا معهم لكن لم يضربوا بهذه الأسلحة التافهة ضد هذه الأسلحة القوية تدمر كل شيء ثم الناس يظنون أن هذا هم اعتدوا عليهم هذا هو النظام الآن هل قدمهم شيئا يعني هذه الطريقة العنيفة هل قدمهم شيء شوف هناك أنا لا أحكم على الفلسطينيين لأن لست في وضعهم طيب وممكن الظروف جننت بعض الناس يعني لأن فعلا هذا وضع صعب أنا لا أحكم.
So, are you absolutely certain that he's wrong?
Yes, of course. The Palestinians should resist to the teeth. I mean,
I didn't read anything, by the way. I just everybody going. My premise is though.
He doesn't know.
My premise though is this.
You're commenting about a video you didn't see.
No, my premise though is that you guys are making. You're making this black and white. is there absolutely no way that Sheikh Hamza's right?
No, absolutely no way. There's no way you will ever succumb to. You ever think that the oppression that I'm being faced with, that I should never, unless there are exceptions. There are situations.
Can I just clarify what
ahead.
you're saying? Is that, look, somebody like him who's well read knows that it's not just your average oppression what's happening to the Palestinians, right? Everybody knows dude, the settlements are illegal on all levels, internationally, right? They're not allowed to exist. But everything that's happening to the Palestinians, literally they're trying to keep their lives by throwing rocks, right? Let's just skip through all of that. Somebody who knows about the ins and outs of politics, who talks about politics, it's not befitting of that man to say something like that about the Palestinians. Someone like you or I who don't know anything about politics, didn't see something from the outside, because what he's saying is exactly what the Zionists say and what the Jews say in Israel, right? Look at these guys. Why don't they just give up and just let us have the territory? Why are they fighting for their rights? It's not helping them. That's exactly what he said, right? And then he said, I don't know about their circumstance. And then at the end he says, what is this actually going to achieve for them? They should stop doing this. So is there any right to what he said? There's not a molecular weight to an ounce of what he says. It is right on the other side if somebody who's like a Zionist or an Israeli soldier that's really trying to promote Zionism and the promised land of the Jews in Israel, to say, dude, these savages, they should stop what they're doing and just let us take over. That's kind of what's happening.
What's so funny? What's so funny? More. Remember the Mongols when they were invading Iraq, and the Muslims didn't even put up a fight, and then people made fun of them. Oh, look, you didn't even put up a fight against the Mongols. So when you don't put up a fight, you die. You still get made fun of, and when you do, so what these people are saying is, no matter what, just take it in the face. Don't put up a fight and just die.
Yeah.
Just have the Christian idea. Turn your face. No, but look, here's the thing. All right, I understand one thing where Mahin's coming from. I think we also must realize that there is a certain group of people that were just looking for things against Hamza Yusuf.
True.
And
I agree with that.
No matter when, they're waiting for him to slip up so they can just jump on top of it, right? And I'm not saying it has to do with the fact that based on his previous statements, like with the UAE and Palestine. I mean, in general, they don't like his Islamic persuasion or leaning or interpretations, and so they're just waiting for for him to say something and jump on the bandwagon. Those kinds of people, I don't think we should pay attention to. However, if people are legitimately upset by what he's been saying politically, that is a legitimate reason to be upset with him, and this could be the straw that broke the camel's back. Meaning that, okay, Palestine, maybe we understand what you're saying. We misunderstood you. The UAE, maybe you're trying to advise rulers, give them nasiha in private or whisper in their ears like some good little fairy. I don't know what you're trying to do. But, in this case, you're openly saying to people now, the general, like regular people.
But that's why people were so hurt by it, because how dare the Syrian revolution
right
do
now
that.
that Allah humiliated them.
Yeah.
People who died. People, even saying, oh, look at them, they're going on boats. Who says that? Is there any empathy and compassion? He can go and cry for Florence Nightingale, but he can't cry for the Syrians? I'm sorry. To me, I don't buy it. Now, look, I hate to be this harsh on him because I do respect him. With his Islamic knowledge, of course, I respect him. I hold him in high esteem. And I do appreciate the fact that he take a chance to try to offer an apology. However, for me, I think even the apology in itself was kind of
okay. Let's go ahead and play it. I would tend to disagree. I thought it was a little bit. Hang on. Well,
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. I'm addressing an issue that arose a few days ago on the day of Ashura. Somebody, I think, uploaded a clip of a part of a longer discussion from a rihla in 2016 in Turkey, which was during the period of the attempted coup in Turkey. And unfortunately, I went into an area I think that I really regret, which was speaking about the terrible tragedy in Syria. And I think what troubled me the most was that the clip actually had the title that I was mocking the victims of a horrific just, I think, one of the most unjust things that we've seen in our lifetime. So anybody that would suggest that, I just, it was so odious to me. I don't know anybody in my family who are not Muslims that would do that. And so I certainly, being from that family, would never do something like that. I would really ask forgiveness for anybody that misconstrued that or took offense from that, because that would never be my intention. And I also want to say that there is in no way that I can determine why things happen. Only God knows. I don't know the mind of God, and I would never assume that. It's absolutely wrong. We do have a tradition, and that tradition, I attempt to always understand what is God telling me, or what is God addressing, because I believe in a God that is active in the lives of human beings and in the life of this world. And so that's always my attempt to understand that. I take full responsibility. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man wajada khayran falyahmadillah, wa man wajada ghayra dhalika fala yalumanna illa nafsa." Whoever finds good, let him thank Allah, and whoever finds other than that, let him blame only himself. So I am somebody who, the Prophet ﷺ was, we call him al-insan al-kamil. He's an impeccable human being. Everybody else is a sinner and makes mistakes. كلكم خطاؤون وخير الخطائين التوابون. All of you make mistakes, and the best people who make mistakes are people that ask forgiveness. I ask forgiveness at least 100 times every day for my sins. And I also hope that people will overlook any mistakes that I make, because that's what I try to do.
Okay, so he keeps on going for a while, and it's a 10-minute long
Sid,
video.
Can I just say why I had a problem with the apology?
Wait. Let's just say he looks on fleek though.
Hold on,
I love his style.
I don't care about how he looks, dude.
He looks
Maybe
great.
you can put on a face.
Look
okay,
at
I don't care about how he looks, dude. Hold on. Okay, look, here's the thing.
He's a
All
handsome man
look,
for 63 years old.
Let me first say this. Do I believe he's sorry, or he's actually trying to make an attempt here? Absolutely, I do. My problem, though, is that he never comes out and says, "I am sorry for saying that about Syrian people." He just goes and says, I regret saying it. I make mistakes." And then he starts talking about the Prophet ﷺ, and he says, "I make Tawbah 100 times a day." I mean, but he doesn't. I mean, I can understand why people would be like, "What's
You want him to be more straightforward and just get to the point."
Exactly. And part of me thinks that, honestly, I think he just made this video on the fly, and his thoughts are all over the place. He wasn't really coherent with what he was saying internally, and I think that's part of because he made it on the fly. But I do believe his sincere and honest intention behind this video was to offer an apology and say, "Hey, look, I regret saying that stuff. I shouldn't have entered that topic, merged it with the topic that was happening in Turkey at that time. I shouldn't have brought those two topics together. They're very different. I regret doing that, and I have mistakes, and I hope that you can forgive those mistakes." I think he was trying to say that, but the way it came out, it just didn't come out like a complete apology. It's just came out very half, like kind of, because it was all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, so I've recently had an apology letter that I put out, and I didn't really apologize directly. I used the similar language when I actually went back and I saw some of the criticism that was happening
about the Sheikh Hamza situation.
Well, so I said something inappropriate. I said he was a treacherous person or something, and people said that I was accusing him of
the exact word you used.
Yeah,
you specifically mentioned, "I'm sorry for saying that word."
Yes,
you actually specifically mentioned the error.
That's
he
true.
Doesn't do that here yet.
Yes, I think you have a point in that respect. I think it would have been a better apology if he said, like, I completely misused that hadith of the Prophet on this situation. That wasn't even the correct way to use that hadith. And I think that's what all the scholars, whether it's Yasir Qadi, Umar Suleiman, Suhaib Webb, everyone came out against that video and said that,
Yasir Qadi had a very good write-up on that.
Yeah, so everyone explained it in a way that was the correct way to apply the hadith, or maybe not everyone, but I know Sheikh Yasir Qadi did. So give credit where it's due. He actually came out and sometimes a lot of the major scholars or well-known scholars, they don't want to put themselves in the limelight, and they don't want to be in controversy, and they don't want to. They don't like conflict, and that's understandable to a certain level. But when stuff like this happens, it definitely needs them to get involved and send out some kind of explanation to the Muslim people that, hey, look,
I'm
this is
sorry,
not.
I'm laughing. Can you imagine if Hamza said this about like another group, like, hey, you know what? The blacks shouldn't have protested in the 1960s because
Actually, something
it's just
like
what-
that recently happened with him.
The BLM stuff?
Huh?
Oh, he did. I don't know.
Was it the Black Lives Matter one?
No, he didn't say that.
He
Yeah,
did it.
at
He did it.
RIS,
But as soon
yeah.
as you said that, I just thought.
The BLM stuff was different. No, he's talking
Yeah.
about whether BLM as a group, and
Yeah.
no, that's a whole different issue. I'm
Yeah.
not talking. BLM is not civil rights movements. It's not. Let's not confuse that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BLM and civil rights are two different things, two different groups of people, different ideologies. I'm talking about civil rights movement,
Yeah.
meaning marching the streets for the right to drink at the same goddamn water fountain, the right to ride a
Yeah.
bus, that kind of thing, right? Imagine if he would have said that, you know what, they shouldn't have just, caused that commotion. They should have just, they got humiliated. They got water cannon, they got bit by dogs. And, imagine how many people would have been like, oh my God, how dare you? Right. And now I feel like that the people are turning, an eye because it's not a huge social issue for people right now. Right. Whereas like this black movement thing right now is, so naturally it would create more attention. Right. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, imagine like the outrage that would have came out if you just said that about the civil rights movement. It would have been completely crazy. I think, in my opinion, it really would have been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a question for Sim. So because I saw your original post that people like some people
Yeah.
would I think they screenshotted it, right?
Yeah.
I saw you edit. It went to like multiple edits.
Yeah.
It went from a human being to his words and whatnot. And then you
Yeah.
kind of just cut that part out.
Yeah.
Do you regret like maybe do you think in the future you would like not you would let things play out a little bit, give it a couple days, or would you just
Especially not with when it comes to Syria, when it comes to revolutions. I'm an activist at heart, bro. I will go at it, bro. I'm not a scholar. This guy, if this show was called something else, it would, what's that one show Rogan's buddies have? Fighter and the Kid. This
Fighter
would
and
be
the
like
Kid,
the
yeah.
scholar and the activists or whatever.
okay.
It's kind of like that. Like that's who I am.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, my idol was like Che Guevara, like the way he went around South America, starting up revolutions everywhere. I love that, and that's me. Like when I'm 12 years old, and while other kids are like playing with He-Man and stuff, that I'm like super getting excited about the stories of Che in South America. There's no way I could ever let something like that slide, and he knows it. He admitted to it. And he knows how horrible it is. His own friends, his own Syrian friends saw how horrible it is. I only edited that out because people started thinking that I'm saying that he's apostatized or he's left Islam, and people are
Yeah,
trying to
because
add
treachery is
something
like
more
Syrian,
to
right?
what
It's like- it's
treachery
like-
is. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'll go ahead and I'll just remove the whole statement and just make it. I think the statement was enough on its own.
There was a no, but like, do you worry about where someone has a screenshot of your original post and
No, I
they
don't
like
care.
hold it against you,
They can do whatever they want, bro, and like,
or they propagate it? They're like, oh, this is what his.
so what? So I mean, it's on record right now. But we're talking about the podcast.
Right.
We don't delete the episodes,
Right.
except for one person.
No, but you know
who
what?
we
I will say
love,
one thing.
by the
I will
way.
say one thing, Sim. I don't think it really matters anyone
Yeah.
accepts his apology or not. It's not for us to accept
Yeah.
it. It's Allah Azza wa Jalla hears what he said. And if those people who suffered in the Syrian revolution, if they're offended by that when they heard it,
Yeah.
he has to ask their forgiveness, not ours. I don't have anything to do with that, right? I didn't live through that. The people who are wronged, the ones who are really went through that, they're the ones who decide whether he's sincere or not, right? And Allah is between them and Allah, right? We don't know. I mean, look, for me, I'm just saying it's wrong. Whether he
Yeah.
apologizes or not doesn't change anything for me at all. I'm just saying what he said was wrong. I'm saying right now, I think he learned from that, right? Meaning that I think he's going to be more careful about what he says, and I think it's a deeper conversation to have about other things that led up to this, right? About being involved with the UAE, about being involved with certain commissions in politics, right? About going to the White House, about talking about certain things, right? There's a build-up here. So we have to understand that, hey, Sheikh Hamza, there's a problem with your political outlook in America, against Muslims today, right? There's an issue with how you're viewing yourself as a Muslim in American society, meaning with our view of Muslims outside of America, right? And the foreign policy and these things and foreign governments. I don't think it takes away from his scholarship. Nobody's saying we don't recognize him as a scholar and that somehow we're not going to take from him anymore. No, you don't have to give anything to me. I don't care what you give to me. I'm nothing to him. He probably won't even ever hear my voice ever in his entire life, right? It means nothing to me. What we're talking about is the issue, the principle. What are you standing on? What are you calling people to?
Yeah.
What are you showing? What are you leaving as an example? He's 63, maybe another 10, 15, 20 years left in this world. What example is he leaving for young people who follow Zaytuna? Is it okay to then, take a very relaxed role when all these atrocities are happening or when injustices are happening? Is that okay to be? I mean, I get it. Maybe you don't want to be involved with it, but don't comment on it.
Yeah.
If you don't want to say something, if you don't want to support it or whatever, don't say zilch about it. Keep your mouth shut about it. You have no, and then he goes on to say, you know what? I'm not really from there. I don't know what's going on. Well, then keep quiet.
Yeah.
Why are you opening your mouth?
And more,
set a precedent.
I want to echo what you said too. Like, at the end of the bottom line is, what did the people who are offended, who the people who are suffering there, they're the people. Like when I said that it didn't bother me, like I'm just saying it didn't bother. Like I just look at it like, oh, okay, that's not what he means.
Because you're Bengali and they're Syrian and you're brown and they're kind of white.
They're like that white privilege, man. It's like
they got that Crusader blood going on.
I'm getting reparations.
They deserve it, right?
Yeah.
No, but I spoke to some, but I think that's the bottom line. I think it's just like when like I'm just telling you, like honestly, that was my reaction. You guys saw it.
Yeah. I mean,
I wasn't like
as Amr explains it to me, like it makes sense because you came from a Madkhali background, and I remember when we were growing up as activists.
Yeah,
we hated you guys, like and not just you. And I mean, it was like even Tablighi Jamaat. It like repulsed. Like I hated them because they got into countries so easily. Like Tablighi Jamaat, the Madkhali guys, they had no problems entering any country. Like I'm like, man, what weasels, bootlickers.
Wait, Sim, Mahin, do you remember like in the UK at one point, like there was a huge fiasco of like other Madkhalis spying on other Madkhalis and like reporting them?
I don't remember the Madkhalis doing it to each other, but I definitely liked the informant stuff. But there was something you said that was kind of I think there was a comment that was really funny, by the way. So Sheikh Hamza said something about how Muslims can't even get in line straight.
Yeah, so
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I mean,
well, that's what immigrants in general. Why does it have to do with Muslims? I think that's what that's
everybody.
That's the rest of the world.
That's the whole world.
That's the whole world.
Could I say, you know what? America can't even get healthcare right. I mean,
I got healthcare. I don't know about you.
With you.
My healthcare is solid.
I don't have healthcare.
Okay, well,
suck.
You know what? Well, I don't know about you, Hamza, but my line is straight. I mean, my feet are straight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, stupid.
Get a better job. Stop being a victim.
Yeah,
exactly. That's so. So this is exactly what a lot of the activist class, the people who are fighting against a lot of the various forms of oppression that are happening in the world, that they see this kind of elitism, classism.
Hey, Sim,
some of the activists use it.
Sim, I'm sorry, someone's like calling Sheikh Hamza Yusuf a kafir because of his views on like the Western. Can we just kind of avoid it? Guys in the text, we don't make takfir of ulama on this program.
We don't make takfir of anybody, bro.
Take that, take that
Any
offline.
Muslim, bro.
We don't. I mean, you have your opinions, that's fine, but I don't support you making takfir of people that have contributed to this ummah. The issue of tawassul is an issue that's not we're not discussing. We're not talking about these things. There's valid opinions that are here and there, whether you agree with them or not. We're not here to talk about that. If you want to go ahead and make takfir of people, do it on your own time, but not on the show.
And what he means by doing it on your own time, just don't even do it. Let me just say this. Let me go out and just say this. No matter what we talk about as far as issues, the reason why we do this podcast is to make Muslims aware of what issues are out there and how we bring it back to the Quran and the Sunnah, right? But don't let anybody be mistaken. Just because somebody disagrees with core tenets of Islam because they don't know any better, that doesn't mean we don't love them. I think I'm speaking for all of us here. No matter what people believe, if they say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, bro, we love you like we love ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're not here just because our tone may be sometimes that is harsh, but it's harsh against the idea and not the person.
Yeah.
We're talking about the ideas. But whatever happens, dude, if I disagree with the Muslim, no matter what he says, I'm not going to call him a kafir, bro.
Bro, Hamza Yusuf was a huge influence before 9/11. in just my own activism and in
Dude, he
framing.
put Islam on the map for Western Muslims
Not
on a
just
very
that.
high
Not
level.
just that. He was like a modern form of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
At least for young Muslims who were growing up and they were looking for direction. He cultivated that. He was like, you know what? You cannot stand by against oppression.
But we didn't even know anyone that articulated Islam like he did,
Yeah,
bro.
exactly.
And we
Because-
were proud of that.
Exactly.
Right?
So-
it's the ideas that we're talking about. So don't go near that. Whatever his personal beliefs are, dude, don't start talking about kafir this and that. That's just foolish. And, just do istighfar, bro, because if you call a Muslim a kafir, wallahu alam, how Allah is going to turn that on you, man. So let's refrain from
Especially
that.
about issues that are there's
مختلف فيه.
khilaf on.
Yeah,
There's
of
khilaf
course.
on these
Yeah.
issues, and,
Yeah, we could talk about that some other time. Of why some scholars believe it's a fiqh issue and not an aqidah issue. We could talk about all of that.
If someone still wants to debate, they can go on Muzzy Buzz.
Can we just
Hey,
the guy is like
Yeah, I've done it. I take care of it.
good.
okay, hey, Mort, like you should Muzzy Buzz. The theme should be all retards welcome.
Oh boy.
I think that word is politically incorrect. You
But
can't use that.
What's the new thing that we can say now?
The new thing that we
Autistic
could say
on
now.
the spectrum.
All,
All people on the spectrum are welcome.
all idiots welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
But
idiots
one
welcome.
thing I just wanted to, I don't know how much time we have left, but the reason why Sim keeps saying activism, there's a reason for that. It doesn't mean activism of how we understand it in this contemporary context. It means that when you see injustice happening, especially injustice to those people who say La ilaha illallah Rasulullah, no matter who's causing that injustice, we're behind those people even if we've never met them.
Yeah.
That's what activism is. Yeah, you can get inspiration from Muslims and non-Muslims. That doesn't matter. Because everyone as a human being should have that element in them of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. That's what defines the Muslim, right? You make sure you encourage what's good, and anything that's bad, you have to call it out, whether it's with your hand or with your voice or, the lowest of Iman is holding in your heart. But
Another thing I didn't like about
and that's the reason with Prophet Rasulullah, I'm sorry, is to clear injustices. That's why he was sent.
it's just not even about like people who are like quietists or whether it's Sufi or Tablighi Jamaat or Madkhali, the Madkhali movement, for those who don't know, are government Salafis. They're people who give allegiance to the royal family and things like that. So what I never really liked about them is that they were like very effeminate people. Like they had like their masculinity completely stripped out, and they would and I always saw it as like a program that the government had to make sure that to
make them weak.
to make the activist, to take away this political part of Islam away and make Islam
It was
into
one of the ways to suppress political activism.
Right,
That's
right.
one of the primary religious ways.
right.
Because if
and-
you're going to do it, you have to do it
I
through
mean,
religious
they don't want
leaders.
you to organize as a community, right, Sim? I mean, because when you do that, what happens is that you pose a threat to the current establishment, right?
so you're
it's
seeing
politically
this
dormant.
you're seeing this happening on both ends of the spectrum in America.
Yeah.
In the right wing, you saw like the oppressor, right? This is what the oppressor does. He wants to make sure that the leaders of movements are very emasculated and they don't have much of they don't bring any inspiration to any people, right? And then on the left wing as well, you have, but Chappelle was actually talking about this. Like he was talking about how the black man is being emasculated and being put into these roles in movies where he
Yeah.
has to play. The black man has to play a
woman,
woman,
yeah.
and he's given like all these different roles that are completely emasculating, and so he's very adamant against playing in those roles in movies. Anyway,
that's my problem with BLM too,
yeah.
right? Where that you have, it's crazy that you have like 3 lesbian women making a movement and money around the death of straight black men.
Well, it's not just that, more. It's much more beyond that.
No, but think about that for a moment.
It's become
Think
a
about
move.
that for a moment.
Yeah.
You have, to the point where you have black activists now that are saying we don't want to side with BLM because they're really pushing this gay agenda on us, and using the issue of a true issue that a real issue, an issue of concern that we have black people being killed by police brutality, and that we're trying to mix that with a lesbian or homosexual agenda. Why or how are those two things related?
Yeah.
Think about that for a moment. There's a reason why they're putting them together, to associate blackness with what? With being okay with this homo culture, right? And so there's a reason. There's an undertone here.
Yeah.
And what does that do? It effectively makes men specifically look weaker. But keep in mind, it's the lesbian black women that are running this group. Why? Because you don't need masculine men anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Men are no longer needed for you. You just raise your kids at home. You don't need men anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so this is going back to what the early feminist movement was talking about. The girl Lizzie Pezzett was talking about, where the original target of feminism was, before, it had nothing to do with men.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. When they realized they weren't getting the same funding, the communists and the socialists took this idea and they said, let's make men into the target. We can force other men to be a target and then make them support us and also be the target. And we've now established we made half the world population, effectively made half the world population our targets, our enemies, right? And victim or criminals. And so effectively, this is how they began to make money. And they taught women, you don't need to have men in the house. You don't need to have, men are effectively the problem with families. Families can be women and children. You don't need fathers in the house.
Yep.
You're independent. You have sexual freedom. All these kinds of things that stemmed from this idea. This is exactly what's happening right now within the confines of BLM. It's tragic, dude. There's deeper issues here.
All right, guys, we got to wrap things up. We are almost out of time. Fellas, help us out on patreon.com/themadmamlukes. We also have PayPal, so you can go to themadmamlukes.com/donate.
Stop saying that, Mahi.
Help us
He's
out.
getting people in the room.
Are you guys stirring things up in the chat?
He'll say he might take CVE money. Why are you saying that stuff? That's like borderline like khayana. Like, I mean, it's like.
I mean, there's probably ikhtilaf on it or something.
There's probably someone or something before it even happens. Let's say there's ikhtilaf on it.
No wonder he likes certain people.
Like,
all right.
Mahin's the kind of guy that in India, in British India, he probably would have been like, hey, come to my house.
Chai, samosa, aja.
He would give.
But I love that Mahin can laugh about that too, bro.
house.
That's why I love Mahin, bro. He can laugh about these things, man.
That's true. Some people would like really take it on the chin and
Yeah, no.
they get really upset about it.
Mahin
but-
don't care, bro.
I have no Izza.
All right, guys.
That's a good way to end the show.
Thank you so much for joining us this Friday night.
We have fun, we laugh, we can argue, we can vehemently disagree, but at the end of the day, we're brothers.
Yeah.
We laugh, we enjoy each other, we love each other, and we're here to do good for each other. So take it away.
And fellas, whether you're on the activist side or you're on the Zaytuna hardcore, find a middle ground. Have the ability to point out when things are incorrect and when things are correct. So we, at least from my perspective, I applaud Sheikh Hamza for coming forward and taking responsibility. I think it's a step in the right direction. I hope, inshallah, in the future he retracts his support for the UAE government in whatever engagements that he's done. He's made it clear that he doesn't support oppression. He doesn't support governments that are oppressing. We hope, inshallah, that he completely withdraws his support for or various forms of engagement with the UAE and the Saudis, and he aligns himself with nations who are helping the oppressed, like Qatar. Jazakallah khair. We'll see y'all next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Salam.